Naruto Chapter 1 Start. Naruto, a young blonde boy of the age 8, was running through the forest outside of Konoha. He was a nice young boy, full of energy and happiness. He did a lot of pranks, and those pranks usually consisted of pranking the villagers of the village. This time he overdid it, and the villagers were now chasing him through the forest. He loved this. This is the only time where he would get any attention. He loved attention, and he would do anything to get it. He smiled as he looked back to see the villagers, nowhere in sight behind him. He suddenly stopped and hid in a bush. He looked back to where he just came from and still saw no villagers. I got away from them. Ha 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 ha, I finally got away from them, Naruto thought. He stayed in the bush for the next couple of minutes, just to make sure that none of the villagers were there waiting for him. When he saw that there were definitely no villagers, he began to back up on his hands and knees out of the bush. He slid on his hands and knees about 5 feet away from the bush until he stopped and got up. He brushed himself off, and a big toothy smile graced his face. "Those villagers are never going to catch me," Naruto said, smiling and rubbing the back of his neck. Suddenly there was a cracking sound under him. He looked down to see what it was and saw that there was a big crack in the ground right below him. "What the hell is that?" Naruto asked. Since he had been around the villagers a lot, he had gotten a bad language vocabulary. He didn't know the words he said were wrong, and just said them because he thought they were good to say. There was another cracking sound, and Naruto turned around to see another crack appeared behind him. "I got to get out of here," Naruto said. He then began to walk towards the bush where he just came from, but when he took his first step, the ground gave way, and he fell through a big hole in the ground. Naruto screamed for a second, but then his scream could no longer be heard from the entrance of the hole. He slid through the tunnel that went like a slide, which looped around and went different ways. "Whoop! Yeah, this is fun," Naruto said. He put his hands up and was now having fun with this. He looked forward and saw what seemed like light. That must be the exit, Naruto thought. He was sad that what he thought was a ride was over. Naruto got closer and closer to the light until suddenly the light came upon him, and he was thrown out of the tunnel and onto the ground. "Ouch, that hurt," Naruto said. He rubbed his now hurt butt, which took the force of the impact. He jumped up to his feet and brushed himself off again. After he was done brushing himself off, he looked around. "Where am I?" Naruto asked himself. He looked around the room and saw many things. He looked to his right and saw clothes that looked like they had been sitting there for a while, and when he turned to his left he saw what looked like metal rods. He then looked in front of him and saw a coffin of some sorts. "Is that a coffin?" Naruto asked. He then walked up to the coffin and looked down at the base of it. He saw a lot of dust, so he took his hand down and brushed most of the dust off. When he did this, he noticed that there was words. He bent down and began to read. "Here lies the sage of the 6 paths, the savior and creator of the new world. By defeating the monster with 10 tails, he now rests here, waiting for the chosen one to come and be one with him." Naruto read. There was some more text, but Naruto couldn't make it out. What the crap does that mean? Naruto thought. He got curious, and so he began to push the top off the stone coffin. "Let's see who's inside, shall we?" Naruto said. He then pushed the top of the coffin onto the floor, which when it hit, broke into many pieces. What he saw amazed him. He saw a skeleton which was covered in what looked like an old piece of cloth. Whoever this guy is must have been famous, to be said to be savior of the new world, whatever that means, Naruto said. Naruto looked at the skeleton's skull face and looked down. He saw what looked like a diamond necklace. "That must be worth a fortune," Naruto said. He then grabbed it and pulled it off the skeleton's neck. He held it above his head and looked at it from there. Suddenly the necklace began to glow, a bright light. "What the crap is going on?" Naruto asked himself. Suddenly the whole room was filled with the light coming from the necklace. "You have come," a voice said. Naruto turned and looked around the room to see who said that. "Who's there?" Naruto said. The light from the necklace engulfed the room, and you could see nothing. Naruto closed his eyes and waited for the light to die down. Suddenly, through his eyelids, he could see that the light was gone. He slowly began to open his eyes. When he opened them, he was amazed to see nothing but black empty space. "Where am I?" Naruto asked. He looked around and saw that he could see nothing. One second there is a bright light and the next you can't see anything. Naruto looked behind him and saw a light. Wanting to be able to see, he began to run towards the light. "Come, child," the voice said again. "Who are you?" Naruto said while he was running towards the light. Once he got to the light, he saw the light was coming off a man. He got closer to the man and saw that he was wrapped in the old clothes he saw sitting on the ground in the tomb. The man looked down at Naruto. Naruto suddenly noticed the man's eyes. They were a light purple with orange rings in them. "I am the sage of the 6 paths," the man said. Naruto, confused, remembered that he was supposed to be dead, in the coffin. "How can that be? I saw your skeleton. You were dead?" Naruto asked. The man smiled and bent down to Naruto's height. "I am the spirit of the sage. I have been waiting a long time for my chosen one to come," the spirit said. Naruto then remembered what he read on the stone coffin. "You mean I'm the chosen one?" Naruto said, pointing to himself. "Yes, you are the chosen one, who the text spoke of on the coffin," the spirit said. "Then if you don't mind me asking, what did that mean?" Naruto asked. "I am the 6 path sage, the one who created ninjutsu and taught the first people how to use chakra. I am the one who defeated the Jubi and saved the new world. I am the holder of the Rinnegan," the spirit said. "The Rinnegan?" Naruto asked, confused. "You will find out soon enough. You have come here because you are the chosen one, the one who I am to become one with," the spirit said. Naruto looked confused at the spirit. "What does that mean?" "A great evil is coming to this world. A person with evil eyes shall come and try to rule the world. But you, as the chosen one, will become one with me and shall stop the evil one," the spirit said. "So you're telling me I'm supposed to stop something called the evil one?" Naruto asked. The spirit nodded his head yes. "But you cannot do it alone, you need me. We will now become one," the spirit said. The spirit reached his hand out and touched Naruto's head. Suddenly, like the light from before, encased the darkness and Naruto closed his eyes. He suddenly felt weird and tingly all over. "What's happening to me?" Naruto thought. "We are now one," the spirit said. The light suddenly got brighter, but then disappeared. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. As he did this, he pushed himself up with his hands, and he sat up. He looked around the room to find himself back in the tomb. Suddenly memories began to flood his mind, and he began to know things he had not known before. He remembered the battle with the Jubi. He remembered teaching the monks how to use chakra, and he remembered dying. He remembered becoming one with the 6 path sage, which he was. He then remembered the Jujutsu, Rinnegan. He held his head. This was a lot to take in. He was a new person now. He didn't feel the need to prank anyone anymore, or be the center of attention. He now had the power of the creator of ninjutsu, his knowledge and skill. Naruto got up and looked around his tomb. Now that he had the memories of the 6 path sage, he knew what everything was. He looked down and saw that he was naked. He quickly remembered the clothes he saw earlier and grabbed them. He brushed the dust off of them and put them on. They were big on him until suddenly they became smaller to fit his 8-year-old size. "I remember now, I created these, so I could wear them no matter how much bigger I got," Naruto said. He walked over to the other side of the coffin, which he didn't see before. He looked down and saw a scroll. "My summoning scroll, which has all of the summoning animals on it. I remember begging for the animals to let me summon them," Naruto said, and he put the scroll on his back. He then walked over to where the metal poles were. My chakra poles, I used to control my bodies with these, Naruto said. He grabbed them, and then sealed them into a scroll he found beside them. He looked around the room, and saw that there was nothing else there, and he began to leave. Through the tunnel that he came from, using chakra in his feet so he could go up it. Wow, this is weird. Even though I have the memories and powers of the sage, this is all new to me, Naruto said. He began to run up the tunnel until he realized something. I have an idea, Naruto said. He then ran back to the tomb where his old body was still in the tomb. He put his hand over the skeleton. I might not be able to revive myself, which would be weird, but I can put my other body to good use, if I can get it to look better, Naruto said. Suddenly the skeleton began to grow skin and hair. The skeleton did this until it looked exactly like it did when it was young. Naruto looked at the skeleton and wondered something. Not caring about it right now, he just unsealed some poles and began to pierce the body of his former self. This is weird. Looking at my old body. After he was done with that, he got a chakra earring and pierced his own ear. Now I'll have to try that out later. For right now, I just need to get used to controlling bodies again, Naruto said. Naruto sent his own chakra through his chakra earring to the piercings in the sage's old body, and the body jumped out of the coffin. This is so awesome, Naruto said, still having his old self in there somewhere. Naruto then turned around and ran up the tunnel once more with the body following him. I now have a Deva path. Now I need to find some more bodies, Naruto said. Naruto then remembered the Hokage's tombs. He had tried to play a prank on the Hokage by painting their graves, but it was quickly ended, and he was put in detention at school. Let's pay a visit to the dead Hokages, shall we? Naruto said. He then jumped out of the tunnel now above ground where he was earlier. He then began to run towards Konoha, with the Deva path behind him. Suddenly the Deva path began to go a separate way than him. I don't need to draw too much attention, Naruto said. Naruto, already knowing that he would draw a lot of attention with his new eyes, and since he didn't have a mirror, he had no idea what he looked like. Naruto thought had plans, and they would not be ruined. He quickly came upon the gates of Konoha. He quickly sped through the gate, without the guards seeing him, and made his way towards the Hokage's graves. Once he got there, he began his work on changing the Hokages into his paths. When he was done, he looked upon his new bodies. Suddenly the Deva path showed up beside the other ones. Naruto looked at the first one, being the first Hokage. You are now my animal path. He then pointed to the second Hokage. You are now my human path. He then looked at the last one, the fourth Hokage. You are my new Preta path. He looked over his new bodies and smiled. Since you guys can use the same abilities when you were alive, plus the ability that I have given you through my Rinnegan, I'll be able to beat the evil one hopefully. Now all I need is 2 more bodies. Then if it works, I can have more bodies, he said, looking at his Deva path. Suddenly he felt chakra surging and going uncontrollably. He turned around and saw it was coming from the Uchiha district. What is that awful chakra? It is coming from the Uchiha district. I might want to go check it out, Naruto thought. Suddenly him and his bodies were on the move towards the Uchiha district. Him and his bodies had to move sneakily over the tops of the houses, so not to disturb anyone. When he arrived there, he was met by something he did not want to see. He saw bodies and blood everywhere on the ground of the district. Him and his bodies jumped down from the rooftop and landed on the bloodied ground. What had happened here? Naruto thought. His bodies began to move into the houses, searching for survivors. Since he could see through their eyes, he saw that there were none. Suddenly he felt the evil chakra again. He ran towards the chakra with his bodies in tow. Itachi, what are you doing? A voice said in-house. Suddenly there was a scream, and Naruto rushed in the house. He went to where he heard the scream, and saw a young boy, around 13, standing over an older man. I'm sorry, father, but I had to do this, the boy known as Itachi said. There was a woman in the corner of the room, where they were out just cowering in the corner. "Itachi, my son, why did you do this?" the woman asked. "That must be his mother and father. If I remember right, he is Itachi Uchiha. He is part of Umbu. If he is the killer, then he just killed his entire clan," Naruto thought. Itachi then ran at his mother with his sword drawn, about to kill her. "I can't let this happen," Naruto thought. Suddenly his Deva path appeared in front of Itachi. Before Itachi could think, the Deva path said, "Shinra Tensei." Suddenly Itachi was sent through the ceiling of the house and through the roof. He then landed on the street outside. Naruto ran up to Itachi's mother and looked into her eyes. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked. In shock, the woman just shook her head. Naruto, seeing that she was okay, jumped through the hole that Itachi left on his exit and landed on the road a couple feet from where Itachi landed. His bodies then came behind him and stood there looking at the Uchiha. Itachi got up and brushed himself off and looked at Naruto with his Manjikyu Sharingan eyes. "Who are you, and how did you do that?" Itachi asked. Naruto just stared at the Uchiha with hate in his eyes. "Why have you killed your clan? Answer me now before I kill you," Naruto said. Not feeling threatened, Itachi smirked. "To gain power." Naruto's blood began to boil from hearing the Uchiha's reason. Without saying anything, Naruto just went on the attack. Suddenly his animal path went through hand seals, would release, would tentacles. The animal path said. Suddenly roots flew out of the ground at Itachi, trying to pierce him. Itachi, not being able to dodge because of the shock, just stood there. Before the roots could reach Itachi, Itachi was sucked into what looked like a vortex. Naruto then felt the foul chakra again. Where is it coming from and what just happened? Naruto thought. Then his thoughts were answered. A man appeared with an orange mask on where Itachi stood. "Who are you?" Naruto asked. "I never thought I would see the day where the chosen one would come out and play," the man rhymed. Naruto, now knowing who this man was, he was the evil one. "You can rhyme, that is nice, but I have other things I need to take care of, like killing you," Naruto said. The man with the mask laughed. "Not today, but I'll see you again," the man said. Suddenly he disappeared in the same way Itachi did. What was that? Naruto thought. "Who are you?" Naruto heard from behind him. Naruto turned to see a boy that he went to the academy with, Sasuke Uchiha. Just Naruto looking at the boy, Naruto sent the paths away from the district and outside of Konoha. "I must have changed if he can't recognize me," Naruto thought. "Did you kill my family?" Sasuke asked in tears. Suddenly the woman that he saved earlier came out of the house and grabbed Sasuke and hugged him. "Sasuke, oh thank God he didn't get you too," she said. "Who didn't get me?" Sasuke asked. "It doesn't matter right now, but he saved us," she said, looking to where Naruto was, except now he was gone. She looked around, and he could not be found. Naruto crouched on top of the house, where he sent Itachi flying through the roof, looked down on the mother and son. He then looked ahead and saw Umbu was coming this way. "I have to get out of here before they come and find me," Naruto thought. He looked down at them once again and he disappeared. He then reappeared outside of Konoha, where his paths were waiting for him. He looked at them and saw what he looked like. He saw that he grew about 4 inches, and his face looked more like his old one, except there were traits of the sage's face. His blonde hair was still blonde, except that it had purple highlights in it. It was also longer, going down to his shoulders. "I can't go back to Konoha since all this just happened. People would ask too many questions. I guess I'll have to travel for now, until I find the right time to come back," Naruto said. He then looked back at his paths and began to run in the opposite way of Konoha. Naruto, now a 10-year-old young boy, was walking with his paths along the road going to Amigakure. He had his paths dressed in robes, like samurais wearing straw hats, so no one could see their faces. He also dressed this way, except his samurai robe was a different color. He had been walking for days on end, trying to get to this place he had heard of from an innkeeper. Supposedly this village was ruled by a tyrant, by the name of Hanzo. Naruto, being the curious one, asked a lot of questions about Hanzo. He had heard that Hanzo had defeated the Sannin all by himself. Being a very big feat, Naruto thought he would add Hanzo to his collection of paths. The problem was that Hanzo was a Kage and was probably protected by many ninja. Naruto saw this opportunity to test his skill, and he would take it. Over the 2 years, Naruto had been traveling around the elemental nations, looking for powerful ninja to complete his collection of paths. But no one was powerful enough in his eyes, until he heard of Hanzo. Naruto also discovered over his travels that his Deva path, which was the sage, could use all the powers of the Rinnegan just like he could, since he used them when he was alive. This was exciting to realize, especially seeing how he would have to face someone, which was probably more powerful than him. Naruto looked up from his straw hat to see the buildings of Amigakure. They were just like the innkeeper had told him. They were tall and made out of metal. Naruto gaped at the height of the buildings and admired them. He looked ahead of himself and saw the gate to the village. He hoped that the papers he stole from the IWA ninja that were supposed to come here would work. He made sure that he got their headbands and put them on each of his path's arms. He walked up to the gate and was stopped immediately by a guard. Naruto showed him his papers, and they opened the gates to let him in. When he and his paths were inside, they could see people just flowing through the streets of this metropolis. This city is so cool, Naruto thought. Naruto, asking for directions from the gate guard, began heading towards the Kage's tower, which was the tallest building. Naruto and his paths made their way through the village of buildings, trying not to bring any attention to them. They finally made it to the Kage's tower and had to go through another security check, but Naruto just showed him the papers and went inside to meet Hanzo himself. Naruto, still being a child, still gaped at how big the village was. Naruto, seeing he was closing in on Hanzo's office, began to get serious. He walked through the door of the office with his paths close behind. Hanzo looked up from his desk and smiled at them. "Welcome to Amigakure. I hope that you were treated nicely on the way up here. Now let's begin the treaty signing. I have come here to add you to my collection, Hanzo, and end your reign on this village," Naruto said before he and the others took off their straw hats. Hanzo, being confused, looked upon the blonde and his paths. Hanzo stood up from his desk and walked in front of it. "Who are you, and how do you idiots plan to kill me?" Hanzo asked, getting ready for a battle. "I am Naruto Uzumaki, the one who will end your reign of terror," Naruto said. At this, Hanzo began to laugh. This kid actually thought he could kill him. Naruto, not laughing at all, just stood there. "Kid, you think that just because you have your friends here with you, that you can beat me? Well, forget it, it'll just end this quickly," Hanzo said, as he took out an explosive tag and threw it at Naruto. Naruto put out his hand and said, "Shinra Tensei." Suddenly, an invisible force pushed everything in the room, except for Naruto and his paths outwards. This invisible force hit the explosive tag, and Hanzo, sending them flying out the window. The explosive tag went off when it got near Hanzo, and instead of falling down to the ground, he was sent to the next building's roof. Naruto and the paths jumped from the office down onto the building's roof. Hanzo, not being affected by the blast, got up and brushed himself off. He then looked at Naruto. "I don't know how you did that, but I know I better finish this quickly," Hanzo said. He then bit his thumb so blood came out. He then slams his hand to the ground and says, "Summoning Jutsu." Suddenly smoke goes all over the place, and when the smoke clears, Hanzo is on the back of a huge salamander. Naruto just stands there looking at Hanzo on his salamander. Deciding to make the first move, Hanzo ordered his salamander to run towards Naruto. Naruto put his hand up again and said, "Shinra Tensei." Hanzo's salamander was sent flying, but then poofed into smoke, along with Hanzo. Hanzo then appeared behind Naruto and was about to stab him with a kunai, until Naruto's Predapath grabbed Hanzo's hand. Hanzo then felt his chakra begin to be drained from his body. Realizing the Predator path was doing it, he punched the path in the gut, making him curl over. Hanzo then jumped back away from the paths and Naruto. Why didn't he use that jutsu again? He could have sent me flying, but he didn't. He might be only able to use it every couple of seconds or so. I'll have to keep tabs on that throughout the battle. I might be able to use that to my advantage. Hanzo thought. What is he thinking? Naruto thought. Naruto then thought he would make the next move, so his animal path summoned a large dog with the Rinnegan eyes. Hanzo, getting ready for an attack, just stared at them. The dog then barked and began to attack Hanzo. The dog got close, and Hanzo went through some hand seals and cried out, "Water-style water bullet." Hanzo then sucked in a lot of air and then breathed outward, which made huge water bullets come out. The summoned dog could not dodge fast enough and was hit and dispelled. Naruto, taking this time to attack, sent forth his Deva path to try and end this quickly. The Deva path appeared behind Hanzo and threw a punch at his face. Hanzo blocked the punch and hit the path with a counterpunch, sending the path through the air into another building. Hanzo looked down on the building and saw it began to crumble. The path got up and looked through the hole that he had made coming into the building up at Hanzo. The building began to break apart and fall around the path. The path then jumped from the building onto the building it was just on and began to run up the walls using Chakra. Hanzo, seeing he would have to take on the people one-on-one, decided to try and take this one out first. He summoned a salamander and jumped on it. The salamander then crawled over the edge and used its feet to stick to the walls. The salamander then began to run downwards towards the path, as the path ran upwards. "Die!" Hanzo said as he sent many explosive tags at the path. The path held out his hand and said, "Shinra Tensei." The explosive tags were then sent back flying towards Hanzo. Hanzo ordered his salamander to jump over the tags, which it did, and latched back on to the walls of the building. Hanzo then began to count to see if he was right. Hanzo then jumped off his salamander and flew towards the path. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hanzo said as he headed towards the path. He got closer and closer to the path. 5. Hanzo thought, and suddenly he was sent upwards by another Shinra Tensei. Hanzo flew all the way back up to the top of the building onto the roof. He looked down and saw the building which collapsed, and he then saw the path come up over the side of the building onto the roof. So he must have to wait 5 seconds before he can do it again. Hanzo thought, I have to end this quickly before the ninja come. Naruto thought. Suddenly all the paths ran at Hanzo at once. Still on the ground, Hanzo got up quickly. Seeing them coming at him, he had to think fast. He ran through some hand seals and said, "Wind style, wind swords." Suddenly the wind around the paths, and Naruto turned into invisible sharp razor blades. The wind razor blades shot forth towards Naruto and his paths. They could not dodge, so all of them were hit and got major cuts all over them. They all fell down on the ground from the hit. That hurt, Naruto thought while he was on the ground. He could see the eyes of his paths, that they were heavily injured too. He looked down on himself and saw he was bleeding from a big gash in his chest. Him and all the paths got up slowly and looked at Hanzo. "How could you guys get up after that?" Hanzo said. Naruto needed a quick way to end this fight because it was starting to get out of hand. Suddenly he got an idea. The paths then began to charge Hanzo again. Hanzo, not ready for this, could only wait. When the paths got there, the animal path threw the first punch, which was blocked. Hanzo then kneed in the face, which sent it to the ground. Then the Predator path tried to kick Hanzo, which was dodged. Hanzo jumped out of the way of the other attacks, away from the paths. Naruto, seeing what had happened, looked down at his animal path. The animal path got back up and wiped its bloody face. Hanzo smirked. He was winning this battle. Naruto sensed chakras getting closer to their locating. He knew that it was the AIM ninjas. He quickly went over things that he could do in his head. He then began to think about the different things that his paths could do before they died. He then got a wonderful plan. His human path suddenly went through hand seals. Water release, water dragon bullet technique, it said. Suddenly water droplets formed out of nowhere. Hanzo looked at this in amazement. The water droplets then began to form into a dragon. When they were done, there was a huge dragon made of water in front of Hanzo. The dragon then began its attack. The dragon made its way towards Hanzo, faster than Hanzo could dodge. The dragon hit Hanzo head-on and picked him up and carried him to the next building. When it hit the wall of the next building, it pinned Hanzo up against the wall until the water was done moving towards him. When the water was gone, Hanzo began his descent towards the ground. Hanzo, being knocked out now, just kept falling until he woke up and summoned a salamander. The salamander landed on the ground with grace. Hanzo looked up to the building he was just on. The salamander suddenly jumped into the air. It jumped so high he made it to the roof of the building and landed on it. Great, he's back, Naruto thought. Hanzo smiled. Even though he was worn out, he still made it seem like he wasn't. Come on now, you don't think it'll go down that easy, Hanzo said. The AIM ninja's chakra was getting closer and closer. Hanzo suddenly attacked Naruto by throwing an explosive kunai at him. Naruto, thinking quickly on his feet, ran through some hand seals and said, "Water release, water encampment wall." Suddenly water that was left over from the dragon formed around Naruto to make a wall of water. The explosive tag hit the wall and blew up, but caused no harm to Naruto. The wall then disappeared. Naruto looked at Hanzo with an impassive look. He was running low on chakra, and he knew that he had to finish this soon. He looked around and then thought of a plan. He and his Deva Path both ran at Hanzo. What is he planning? Hanzo thought. Naruto jumped behind Hanzo, while his Deva Path was in front of him. They both put their hands out and said, "Shinra Tensei." Suddenly invisible forces came from both sides of Hanzo. His salamander was quickly dispersed, and Hanzo was being pushed on both sides of himself from the force. He was being squished, and it hurt like hell. Suddenly the bone in his arm popped out of the skin, and he let out a scream. The invisible forces were gone now. Hanzo landed on the ground with a thud. Naruto looked at Hanzo. It's over now, Naruto thought. Hanzo then slowly began to get up to his feet. He made one-handed hand seals and said, "Fire release, great fireball technique." Suddenly he spit out of his mouth a huge fireball which was heading for Naruto. Naruto wasn't fast enough and he was hit by the fireball. It scorched him from head to toe, and his clothes were almost gone. The flames were gone, and Naruto's body laid there. Even though I'm done doesn't mean I can't finish this, Naruto thought in pain. Hanzo summoned another salamander and was on top of it. Naruto slowly began to get up. The paths crowded around him, blocking him from all sides. They are almost here, I have to finish this, Naruto thought. Suddenly the Preta Path threw a weird-looking kunai at Naruto, which Naruto caught. The Preta Path then began to run full force at Hanzo. Hanzo, not seeing this coming, tried to get the salamander to jump out of the way, but it was too late. The Preta Path jumped and knocked Hanzo off his salamander, and they both went over the edge of the building. They both began to fall towards the ground. The Preta Path quickly grabbed Hanzo from behind and locked him in his grip, so he couldn't get out. Hanzo tried to get out, but he was quickly stopped. Hanzo then began to feel his chakra draining from him like it was earlier, and his chakra was going fast. He looked and saw the ground was getting closer. Hanzo could no longer fight back, so he just gave in to the Preta Path. The Preta drained enough chakra out of Hanzo to knock him out. The Preta Path looked and saw the ground was near. Suddenly he disappeared with Hanzo in his arms. Naruto stood three-pronged kunai in hand waiting. Suddenly there was a yellow flash of light, and the Preta Path appeared with a knocked-out Hanzo in his arms. The Preta Path laid Hanzo down on the ground. "It is finally over," Naruto said. Naruto, even though he didn't show it, was almost out of chakra himself. If it wasn't for Hanzo not being able to move fast enough at the end, then he would have lost. Naruto suddenly threw the three-pronged kunai in his hand at Hanzo, which hit him in the throat, spewing blood everywhere. Hanzo the tyrant was dead and Naruto killed him. Suddenly Naruto felt a presence near him. He looked up and saw a man with orange hair and piercings all over his face. He then noticed something that surprised him the most. He had the Rinnegan eyes, and he wasn't one of his bodies. "Who are you?" Naruto asked. He was getting ready for another fight. He knew that if he was right and that was the Rinnegan, he wouldn't win, being in the shape he is in now. His body was burnt all over. "I knew I heard the stories about you. You are the original six-path sage. I am glad to meet you," the person said. "I asked who you are," Naruto said. "I am your descendant, that one that will kill you, and take your eyes to be mine, so I may bring peace to this world," the man said. Naruto looked at the man, and then felt the aim ninja chakras there. He disappeared as well as the paths. The man with the orange hair looked at where Naruto was at. "In time, I will bring peace to the world," the orange-haired man said. Suddenly the aim ninja came onto the roof. When they didn't see Hanzo, they looked at the man. "What happened to Hanzo-sama?" they asked. "I have obliterated him and sent him from this earth," the man said. With Naruto. Naruto appeared out of the village in the forest. He quickly fell down on the ground. He was almost out of chakra and needed to rest. The paths appeared with the Preta path holding Hanzo. His paths quickly made camp and put Naruto in a tent and left Hanzo outside. They then also went into separate tents and lay down. Naruto, with whatever chakra he had left, made a clone to watch the camp. When Naruto fell asleep, so did the paths. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up in what seemed like a sewer. He got up and looked around to see if there was anything around, but there wasn't. He saw there was a hallway and began to travel the hallway. He felt a grimacing evil come from down one of the corridors, and so he followed it. When he found the source, he was amazed. There was a huge gate like a cage, and there was a tag on it. He suddenly noticed what it was. It was the seal that he had used when he sealed the Jubi inside of him. He noticed, though, that it was different than the one he used, but all Naruto knew was that a demon was behind this door. He went closer towards the cage when finally the demon that was behind the gate showed itself. Naruto noticed that it was a fox with red fur. He then noticed that it had 9 tails behind it. He then remembered when he died he put a fail-safe on the seal. So when he died, the Jubi would be split into different parts, separating its power. This must be one of the forms it took when I separated its power, Naruto thought. "I see you have come and visited me, sage," the fox said. Taken back that the fox could actually talk, Naruto just stood there. "How did you know?" Naruto asked. The fox then let out an evil laughter, which sent shivers down Naruto's spine. "I am not an imbecile. I know you are the fusion of the six-path sage and that little flesh bag Naruto," the fox said. "So you are not dumb after all. I realized that you must be one of the forms Jubi took when I separated his power," Naruto said. "Yes, I am. I am also the most powerful of the forms," the fox said. Naruto laughed. The fox just smiled. "I noticed that there is a seal on the gate you are behind. Why must I ask?" Naruto said. "I'm glad you noticed the humans created a seal just like yours, except not as well, and I was sealed inside of the original flesh bag when I attacked Konoha by the 4th Hokage," the fox said. Naruto, hearing this information before, took it in. "So the 4th, which is now one of my paths, sealed the fox inside of me," Naruto thought. "Why did you attack?" Naruto asked. "I was tricked and controlled by another flesh bag. He had red eyes and somehow could control me. He had evil chakra just rolling off of him," the fox said. "That must be the evil one. He must have sent Fox to attack," Naruto thought. "Now let me out of here and I'll be nice," the fox said. Naruto smiled and shook his head. "I'll make a deal with you. If I ever need to use your chakra because I am low on mine, you'll give it to me. In return, I won't kill you," Naruto said. "You think you can just order me to give you my chakra?" the fox asked. Do you remember who you were talking to? If you don't, I can just take it from you painfully. It'll be your choice when the time comes. For now, heal my wounds. Naruto said. I like you, flesh bag. The fox said. Just do what I want. Naruto said. Real world. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself in his tent. Suddenly red chakra engulfed his body and healed all the burns, and such that he had gotten from the battle with Hanzo. He got out of the tent and had the paths take down the tents and cook breakfast. Once they were done eating, Naruto began to work on Hanzo. He is going to be my Azura path, so I need to work on him a lot more, since he is going to be pretty much a machine, Naruto said. He sent his paths out across the land to go and find different things he could use to make his mechanical friend. When they came back with a lot of things, Naruto began his building. Not too long later, he was done building his new friend. He then realized he needed to heal his paths, so he got each one of them to come near him so the fox's chakra could heal them. After that, he went back to work building his new Azura path. It did not take long for Naruto to build the Azura path since he had done it once before. A year later, Naruto had been traveling with his paths across the elemental nations. Ever since he had left Amigakure, he had heard of a person who had killed Hanzo and became the new Kage. Naruto already knew who it was. It was the person with the Rinnegan. Naruto could not wrap his mind around the fact that someone else had the Rinnegan. He said, he as a descendant of mine. That explains why he has the Rinnegan, but I wonder if he knows how to use it. Naruto thought. He decided to worry about it later, but for now he would just eat. He and his paths were enjoying a great meal at a restaurant. Naruto gained money by hunting down missing nin and turning them in for their bounty. He had gained a lot of money off of that and he liked it. Now he ended up here in a small restaurant outside of the Suna. He had been training hard ever since he was almost beaten by Hanzo. He knew now that he could beat Hanzo without being in such bad shape. Like last time. He looked at his paths and smiled. He was glad all this happened to him. He then felt a chakra that he had felt 3 years ago. He turned in the restaurant to see Itachi, and he was with someone that looked like a fish, and they had a really big sword on their back. What the hell are they doing here? Naruto thought. Itachi and his partner went and sat down at a table. Naruto noticed that they were wearing matching uniforms. They both had robes, which was black, and had clouds on them. He finished his meal, and him and the other paths disappeared from the restaurant. Itachi looked over to where Naruto just was, and turned to Kisame. They both gave each other a nod, and got up and left the restaurant. Naruto watched them go out of the restaurant from a distance. I guess I'll have to take them both. This is going to be tricky. I don't know if I can take them both. I don't even know what the shark guy's powers are. Naruto followed them through the woods, outside of town until they reached a field. They then stopped in the middle of the field. They knew I was following them, Naruto said as he and his paths jumped out of hiding. Itachi and his partner then turned to face Naruto. Long time no see. We have been waiting for you to make your move, Itachi said. Why are you here? Naruto asked. We have been on your trail for a while, and we have finally found you, the partner said. What do you want with me? Naruto asked. My friend Kisame and I are here because we want what's sealed inside of you, Itachi said. How do you know about that? Naruto asked. Our leader knows a lot about you, Naruto, Itachi said. I can't let you guys go on from here. I am sorry, but I must kill you both, Naruto said. Kisame began to laugh. You actually think that you can take us both? I'll take you by myself, Kisame said. Naruto smirked, just what he wanted, for them to fight one-on-one with him. Kisame, I don't think that is wise, considering his power. We should fight him together, Itachi said. Nonsense, Itachi, I got him. He won't be alive for long, Kisame said. Kisame then stepped out in front of Itachi. He took his sword off his back and unwrapped it. There now in front of Naruto was a sword that looked like sea urchin skin. Fine, I'll take you on, Naruto said. The paths behind him got ready. Next time on Naruto, Six Paths Age, Naruto vs. Kisame. Thanks for reading. Hope you liked it. Naruto Chapter 3 Start. Naruto stood there looking at his new opponent. He had never heard of this person before. That was the bad thing. All he knew was his name was Kisame. This was going to be hard, and he knew it. Not knowing a person's power before you fight them is going into dangerous territory. Naruto analyzed everything about Kisame, his sword, his height, and possible strength level. Naruto looked to his right and saw a beautiful lake, then spanned a while off. Naruto began to think for a minute. He must have a water affinity then, to bring me near water, Naruto thought. Kisame made the first move when Naruto wasn't even ready. Kisame dashed forward towards Naruto and swung his great sword. Naruto easily dodged it and stuck his hand out. Shinra Tensei. Kisame was then sent into the air. Suddenly the Azura Path grabbed the Deva Path and threw him towards Kisame, who was in mid-air. Kisame, seeing this coming, whipped his sword around and held it towards the Deva Path. Suddenly Chakra seemed to drain out of the Deva Path as he was heading in the air. He's draining my chakra out of my path. But how? Naruto thought. Kisame smiled, feeling the chakra that was flowing into him. The Deva Path, being weak for a moment, still came at Kisame, but his chakra was still being drained. Kisame brought his sword over his head and swung it down on the Deva Path. Naruto, not being able to move his path out of the way quick enough, watched as his path was sent to the ground at an amazing speed. The path hit the ground with a shockwave coming after it. Dust filled the air, and when the dust cleared, Naruto saw his path dead in a crater. Shit, he killed one of my paths already. I can revive him later, but right now that isn't going to happen, Naruto thought. He just stood there and looked at Kisame, who had just landed on the ground, and was smiling. Is that the best you can do? I have fought better? Kisame asked. Naruto looked over Kisame with his Rinnegan eyes. Naruto noticed that there was an abundant amount of chakra in Kisame's sword. He also noticed that it was flowing into Kisame. That must be my chakra. So the sword drains you of your chakra when you're close enough, and the Kisame can take it and use it as his own. Great, just what I needed, Naruto thought. Naruto had no plan for this. He could not think of one. He had never fought a fighter like this one before. I guess I am going to have to fight him from long range, Naruto thought. He then saw Kisame was running through hand seals. Naruto, knowing what jutsu he was going to do, also ran through the same hand seals. Earth Release, Earth Dragon, they both said at the same time. Suddenly two dragons made out of ground appeared in front of each of them. The dragons then attacked each other. Naruto's dragons wrapped itself around the other dragon and bite its neck. Kisame's dragon yelled in pain, but got untangled and bit Naruto's dragon's body. Naruto, being calm, got his dragon to get away from the other dragon and then bite its head before it could react. When this happened, Kisame's dragon disappeared, and Naruto's dragon stood there. It then turned to Kisame and attacked. Kisame, seeing this coming, ran towards the Earth Dragon and destroyed it by hitting it with his sword. The Earth Dragon crumbled before Naruto. That was a very good trick, but I'll still win, Kisame said. He then ran at Naruto at full speed. Naruto stuck his hand out again to use the Shinra Tensei, but when Kisame saw that, he dove underground. Where did he go? Naruto thought. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Kisame came out of the ground below Naruto. He flew straight up, sending a punch to Naruto's chin. Naruto felt immense pain and was sent flying through the air. Kisame jumped up in the air and prepared to hit Naruto with his sword. Suddenly, a hand out of nowhere hit Kisame in the face. When Kisame looked to see who hit him, he saw that the hand wasn't attached to anything. Being hit in mid-air knocked Kisame off balance, and the hand suddenly shot backwards and connected with the wrist of the Azura Path. Naruto then regained his composure in the air and turned towards the off-balance Kisame. Shinra Tensei, Naruto said. Kisame was then shot towards the ground at high speeds. Kisame hit the ground and bounced on it. Like a skipping stone, he bounced on the ground and hit some trees at the edge of the field. Naruto landed and looked to where Kisame was. Did I win? Naruto thought. Suddenly the Kisame he was looking at turned into smoke. The real Kisame then appeared behind Naruto with his sword and hit Naruto in the back with it. It drained a lot of his chakra in that hit and also sent Naruto flying into the water in front of him. The paths just stood there as Kisame jumped on top of the water and watched Naruto swim back to the top. I don't need them coming in here and being sitting ducks like me, Naruto thought. Naruto jumped on the water surface and stood on the water. Kisame looked at Naruto and smiled. That hurt a lot, kid, being thrown like that. It won't happen again, I promise you, Kisame said. Naruto stood there waiting for Kisame to make his move. Kisame then began to run through hand seals. Water release, water shark missile technique, Kisame said. Naruto looked around and saw that there was something moving underwater. The thing underwater went near Kisame and then surfaced enough so you could see its top fin. A shark, Naruto thought. Hope you like my pet, Kisame said. Suddenly the water shark came at speeds Naruto could barely keep up with. Suddenly when the shark got near him, it jumped out of the water. It was a huge water shark which was baring its teeth at Naruto. Naruto dodged the shark and began running on the water towards Kisame. Kisame smirked. Naruto got near Kisame and was about to throw a punch when suddenly the water shark came back. The shark jumped out of the water and bit Naruto on the shoulder. It then dragged Naruto underwater. Naruto felt immense pain and quickly destroyed the shark with a Shinra Tensei. Naruto then sent his paths to go and attack Kisame while he got up on top of the water. The animal path summoned a giant sea creature, which went into the water. Naruto, jumping of the sea creature's tentacles, found his way up to its head, which was above water. The paths also went up to where Naruto was on top of the head of the sea creature. Kisame stood there and watched as he was still on the water. The sea creature then began his attack on Kisame. Its tentacles rose out of the water and threw themselves at Kisame, who had a hard time dodging so many. Naruto healed his bite wound with the fox's chakra and made his way down the body of the sea creature towards Kisame. Shit, dodging all these tentacles is tiring me out, Kisame thought as he dodged another one. Naruto made it to Kisame without him noticing and held out his hand. Shinra Tensei, Naruto said. Kisame, hearing that, knew he was screwed. Kisame was then thrown backwards onto land. The great sea creature then extended one of his tentacles and smashed it on Kisame. The tentacle then retracted itself and the great sea creature disappeared. Naruto and his paths came onto land and looked at Kisame still on the ground. I think I beat him, Naruto thought. Ha 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 ha. Kisame laughed. He slowly began to get up. You could tell he was beaten badly by the way that he carried himself. How is that possible to still be moving after that? Naruto thought. I guess I underestimated you, but I will do that no more, Kisame said. His sword in his hand still shot itself at Kisame's body. Naruto saw what looked like Kisame and his sword fusing together. When the fusion was done, Kisame stood there looking like a real shark. What the hell is that? Naruto thought. Kisame then ran through some hand seals. Water prison, shark dance technique, Kisame said. Suddenly all the water from the lake shot into the air. It then moved to where Naruto and Kisame were in the air and dropped on them. What the hell is going on? Naruto thought. Naruto could see that the water formed like a big bubble around them. He looked at Kisame, who was smiling in his new form. Naruto and his paths held their breaths. Kisame in his new form suddenly shot towards them at high speeds. He can breathe underwater somehow, and with his new transformation he can swim fast. If I don't get out of here, I am screwed, Naruto thought. Kisame then swam faster towards them. When he got close enough, he went straight for Naruto's Azura path. With nothing Naruto could do, he just sat there and watched his newest path get ripped apart. After Kisame was done, he went to his animal path, to his human path, and destroyed them all. He is destroying all my paths, and I am losing air fast. I have to put as much chakra as I can into my Shinra Tensei, and then make it go in all directions, Naruto thought. Naruto gathered chakra for a couple seconds, and then released everything he had. Shinra Tensei. Suddenly an invisible force hit Kisame, and he could not stop it. The force picked Kisame up and threw him out of the water into the air. Suddenly, when Kisame was thrown outside of the water just dropped and Naruto and his last path were free. His Preta path jumped up into the air and grabbed Kisame, and while he was doing that he began to drain Kisame of his chakra. The Preta path then made them start going straight down and get into a spiraling motion. Kisame's chakra was then transported to Naruto as he started to gain strength. The Preta path then was about to release Kisame so he could hit the ground hard, but that plan was ended quickly. Kisame woke up from being knocked out and drained the chakra out of the Preta path. Kisame hit the Preta path in his gut with his elbow. Kisame, with the chakra he gained from the Preta path, disappeared from the path, and since all the chakra was gone in the path hit the ground dead. That was my last path, and I'm almost out of chakra, Naruto thought. He then saw Kisame appear 50 yards away, with just scratches on him. Shit, that took a lot out of me, but I have more than half of my energy left, so I am good. I know he is feeling it, he is almost done. I am just going to finish this, Kisame thought. Kisame then turned back to his original form, with his sword in his hand. Crap, he barely even looked hurt. I am screwed, Naruto thought. Kisame then ran at Naruto with his sword. Kisame disappeared and then reappeared in front of Naruto. Naruto, too tired to dodge, was hit dead on in the face, sending him flying in the air, in the forest through a lot of trees. Naruto landed on the ground in immense pain. I'm about to die, great. There is no way I can beat him now. He took the last of my chakra with that last hit, Naruto thought. Naruto couldn't move, so he laid there. Kisame and Itachi walked over to where Naruto was, and Kisame looked down on him. Kisame then picked him up by his collar and held him there. You know, you little brat, you gave me a run for my money. I'm just glad we can get you back to base, to extract the fox, Kisame said. Then an idea suddenly hit Naruto. That's right, I totally forgot about the fox, Naruto thought. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto appeared in front of the gate, where the fox was behind. Naruto looked at it, waiting for the fox to come. The fox, seeing he had company, went to the gate and looked upon Naruto. Fox, I need your chakra, Naruto said. Already? I thought the great sage didn't need any help, the fox said. Very funny. But right now there is no time for jokes. I need your chakra, or we both die, Naruto said. The fox looked at Naruto and smiled. Fine, have as much as you want, but don't get on to me if you lose control, the fox said. Outside world. Naruto's body began to get red chakra forming on the outside of it. Kisame, noticing this, took out his sword to try and absorb it, but it was too much and Kisame was thrown back by the sheer power of the chakra. Itachi jumped back so he would not get caught in the action. Naruto, when he was dropped, fell on his feet and let the fox's chakra take over. His body was now covered in red chakra, and the chakra formed what looked like a fox skin around him. The chakra grew in the back and made one tail. What is this power? This must be the fox's chakra, Naruto thought. The whisker marks on Naruto's face were now more defined, as he looked more feral. Kisame got up from being thrown and looked at the blonde. Crap, this is a big problem, Kisame thought. Naruto disappeared and then reappeared in front of Kisame. Die, bitch, Naruto said, as he sent a punch to Kisame's stomach which sent him fly backwards. Naruto then reappeared behind Kisame and kicked him upwards. Kisame was now in great pain. With almost every hit he could hear his own bones cracking. The chakra that made up his tail shot out above Kisame. It made a hand of chakra, and the hand smashed down on Kisame. It brought him all the way to the ground and squished him, making a crater. The hand of chakra turned back into a tail and went back to Naruto. When the hand disappeared, Naruto saw Kisame lying there dead. I can't believe I am so powerful now with his chakra, Naruto thought. The red chakra suddenly made more arms and went to Naruto's dead paths. The red chakra gripped on to every one of his paths and surrounded them in chakra. The chakra then began to heal their wounds. The chakra on Naruto healed his wounds also, and then the red chakra disappeared altogether. Naruto ran through some hand seals and said, "Outer path. Samsara of heavenly life technique." Suddenly a huge head with Rinnegan eyes popped out of the ground. It opened its mouth and tentacles flew out. The tentacles then made their way to each of his paths and connected themselves to the paths. The tentacles then disconnected themselves and went back into the giant head's mouth. The giant head closed its mouth and then disappeared into the ground. Naruto's paths then got up from where they were lying and made their way to Naruto, who was looking down on Kisame. He then remembered something. He looked towards the forest he had just come out at and saw Itachi there. Itachi walked all the way to Naruto and stood at the other side of Kisame. "Are you going to fight me too?" Naruto asked. Itachi looked at Naruto and smiled. "No, I do not plan on fighting you. I wouldn't stand chance. I have come here now to thank you for killing Kisame," Itachi said. At hearing this, Naruto was confused. "I thought you were his partner," Naruto said. "I was his partner, but I was forced to be his partner, just like I was forced to kill my clan," Itachi said. Naruto was even now more confused at this. "So what are you saying?" "I am saying that I am not a killer. Well, I am, but I didn't want to kill them. I have been made to do those things. Leader Sama put me with Kisame so Kisame could watch me and make sure I didn't leave. Now that you killed Kisame, I can finally leave," Itachi said. Naruto, not buying what Itachi was saying, quickly grabbed him by the throat. Naruto held her up, and suddenly the same giant head from earlier popped out of the ground and opened its mouth. Itachi coughed up a tentacle from her mouth, and the tentacle went inside the giant head's mouth. "Are you telling me the truth?" Naruto asked. The jutsu he just used would tell him if he was lying. If he was lying, then the head would rip his soul out. Itachi shook his head no. Naruto couldn't believe it. Itachi was telling the truth. The tentacle came out of the giant's mouth and went back into Itachi. The head then disappeared like last time, and Naruto dropped Itachi to the ground. "You're telling the truth," Naruto said. Itachi held his throat and smiled. "I know who you are and what you are from Leader Sama. I know that you want to kill him, and so do I. I think that if we work together then we can kill him," Itachi said. "You're telling the truth, but that doesn't mean I have to like you," Naruto said. Itachi frowned. "Please, I am a powerful ninja, as powerful as Kisame. Please just let me help you." Naruto looked over Itachi. He can't do any harm and he is telling the truth, Naruto thought. "Fine, you can travel with me, but any funny business and I'll kill you," Naruto said. Itachi smiled and looked at Naruto. "First I must do something before we leave," Naruto said. Naruto then took out some chakra poles. He then began to make Kisame into his last path, the Naraka path. Itachi just sit there and watched as Naruto healed Kisame wounds, and then made him his last path. It interested him and he watched with very good detail. When Naruto was done, Kisame stood up and wrapped his sword back up and put it on his back. "We are going to have to get you guys a change of clothes. I cannot be traveling with people wearing those uniforms. People from your group might attack us or think we are part of the group," Naruto said. Itachi was just amazed at how well Naruto could control his paths, just like the leader of Akatsuki. Naruto and his paths began to walk in the direction of the where they knew the nearest town was. Itachi, knowing it was time to tell him, dropped the genjutsu. "Oh, and I need to tell you something. Yes. Naruto turned and looked at Itachi. He saw something different about him. He now had longer hair and his body was now Kavya, and it looked like he had breast. Big breast too. He looked at Itachi confused. My real name isn't Itachi, it is Mizo, and I'm actually a girl, Mizo said. Naruto could not help but stare at Itachi, who was now Mizo. He was taking it all in, one look at a time. He then looked at her big breast and stared at them. Mizo, who noticed this, smacked him across the head and said, "Pervert." Naruto, still dazed from the new transformation Mizo had taken, didn't even feel the pain of the hit. "This is going to be a fun adventure," Mizo said. Mizo looked at Naruto. "What is your name?" Mizo asked. "Naruto," Naruto said, still in a confused state. 2 years later. In the great land of sound, two figures walked side by side on a small dirt road heading towards the land of fire. The two figures were dressed in dark black robes with the collars extending to their nose. They each wore straw hats, which covered their faces. "Naruto, why are we here again?" one of the figures asked. This figure, having a feminine body, looked over to the other figure known as Naruto. "You know exactly why we are here, Mizo. We are here to find that snake," Naruto said. Naruto and Mizo had been traveling together for the past 2 years, and they have grown a great friendship. They had taken down many missing nin together and have grown accustomed to the other's company. Even though at first Naruto didn't trust her, he now trusted her with his life. They walked for about an hour until they came upon a forest area, where the road ended. They kept going through the forest. "Do you think it was wise to have your paths follow us, instead of being with us?" Mizo asked. "I didn't think we would need them, and if we do, I'll just summon them here. What's the worry? You could probably take on the snake yourself," Naruto said, smiling. Mizo knew he was right and just got over her fear of facing the snake. They were now looking for Orochimaru's base. They got some information out of some of his henchmen that Orochimaru had a base somewhere near here, so they thought this was the perfect chance to go and hunt the snake. Naruto began to use his Rinnegan to look for distinct chakra signatures through the forest, while Mizo did the same with her Sharingan. They both looked around for about 10 minutes before they finally detected a large chakra signature. "Do you see that?" Mizo asked. "Yes, that has to be him, but be careful. Knowing him, he would set up traps around the base just for intruders," Naruto said. Mizo knew Naruto was right. She knew him for a short time when he was in Akatsuki and knew what his chakra looked like. They both sneaked through the forest and found the entrance to the base. They looked at each other and both nodded their heads. They then walked inside the base. It didn't take them long to finally reach some rooms because they were in a huge corridor that had rooms on both sides. They could not sense chakra in any of the rooms, so just kept on moving through the long hallway. While they were in the base, they could no longer sense the snake's chakra, and so were blind to where he was at. This base must have a security mechanism, so people can't feel other people's chakra in here. But if that's the case, then he doesn't know we are here either, Mizo said. Naruto knew she was right, and they kept walking down the hall. Suddenly they came to a place where the hall diverged into 7 paths. Naruto quickly summoned his paths to the hallway. They appeared out of nowhere in front of him and Mizo. They were wearing the same type of clothes as they were. They looked at Naruto, and then each of them went down their own hall. He looked at Mizo. "You and I are sticking together. Come on," Naruto said, heading down the last path. Naruto and Mizo both went down the hallway they chose and went to the end. When they got to the end, they saw something that gave them the creeps. They had entered a circular room which had cells, and in each cell there was a person in there screaming to be let out. Mizo went to go and start unlocking the cells, when Naruto grabbed her hand. "We cannot let them out just yet. It will alert him that we are here." Mizo nodded her head, and they both jumped down to the next floor, which had a door. They walked through the door to see something they didn't expect. There in front of them was a pal man sitting in a chair, and a boy with glasses standing beside him. "Hello," Orochimaru said. with animal path. The animal path ran down the corridor and was searching for Orochimaru when it came upon the end of the hallway. It had a door there, so it went through it. In the room were files. Curious Naruto had the path look through the most recent files. What it read made Naruto's blood boil. It read about an attack on Konoha. The path read about when it was going to happen, which was during the Chunin exams. Before the animal path could read more, it felt Chakra behind it. The path stuck the file in his robe. The animal path turned to see a ninja behind it, with what seemed like black flames going across its body. He then looked and saw more ninja just the same way behind him. "Time to die," the man said, and suddenly shot at the path and tackled it through the wall. With the other paths, they each had men or women in front of them, with the same black flames on their bodies. With Naruto, "You snake, you set us up," Naruto said. Orochimaru smiled and let his long tongue hang outside of his mouth. "What do you mean?" Mizo asked. "He sent people to attack each of my paths while they were alone," Naruto said. With the Deva path. The Deva path looked at the man in front of it. The man was big and burly and ready to attack. The burly man made the first move and attacked. The man threw a punch at the path's head, which was dodged. The path then did a palm strike to the man's gut. "Shinra Tensei," the path said. The man then shot straight up and hit a sharp rock above them. The rock pierced the man, and he was stuck there, blood gushing out of the wound. The path looked up and saw that his stomach was at the tip of the rock, out of his body. The black flames retreated from his body to what looked like his neck. The path then looked at the others who were there. He got in his stance and signaled them to come and get him. Each ninja came at him one-on-one, which gave the path enough time to use the Shinra Tensei technique over and over again. A man with the black flames all over his body attacked the path from behind. The path, seeing him coming, jumped backwards, doing a backflip, so he landed behind the man. The man turned and the path stuck his hand out. "Shinra Tensei," the path said. The man was sent back into a wall, sending him into the next room. "I'm badass," the path said. With the Preta path. The Preta path was holding one of the men from behind, quickly draining his chakra. Once he was done draining the man's chakra, he threw him hard into the wall, making a crater. The Preta path looked at the others and began to run at them. He touched each and every one of them and punched a few but ran through. He then turned around and looked at them. What they didn't know is that he placed a seal on them. The Preta path then disappeared in a flash of yellow light. He reappeared in front of one of them, and he stabbed her in the gut with his three-pronged kunai. He disappeared again and appeared in front of a man and sliced his neck open, sending blood everywhere. The man held his neck and fell down to the ground. The Preta disappeared again in a yellow light. Looking around, waiting for him to appear, they ninjas were battle-ready. The path appeared behind one of the ninjas and tapped her shoulder. The woman looked around to see the path and was about to scream until the path stuck a regular kunai through her chin, and then it came up out of the top of her head. He then began to murder each of the ninjas slowly. With the human path. "Bringer of darkness technique," the path said. Suddenly, for everyone that was around him, it looked like the lights went out. They couldn't see anything. Their other senses worked, but their sight was useless. The path looked at them and could see them. "I love this genjutsu," the path said. He then began to quickly deal with the people around him. He took out a kunai and sliced their throats one by one, sending their blood everywhere. Suddenly, one of the men touched him, which dispelled the genjutsu over them. The path, not knowing it at the time, was hit in the face, sending him into the wall. The path slowly got up and looked at the ninjas in front of him. He went through some hand seals and said, "Water release, ice burial." In the air around the path, you could see millions of water droplets. The water droplets then formed and froze to create ice spikes. The path moved his hands forward, and the spikes were sent flying towards the ninjas. Each and every one of the ninjas was hit and dead instantly. With the Azura Path. The Azura Path cut one of the ninjas' head off by shooting out a blade from his wrist. The path then turned and shot Senbon from his fingertips at one, which hit them in their jugular veins, killing them almost instantly. The Azura Path slammed his hand to the ground, and smoke covered the room. When the smoke was gone, the path was on top of a salamander. The salamander then began to pounce on everyone he was near, and rip their throat and inner organs out. The salamander then looked at the last man who was standing in front of him. The Azura Path jumped down from the salamander, which dispersed into smoke. The Azura Path began walking towards the man. The man, when the path got close enough, threw a punch, which was knocked away to the side by the path. The path, still keeping momentum, hit the guy in the temples with his right hand and gripped the top of his head. He then took his left hand and grabbed the man's chin. He then broke the guy's neck while he was still walking. "I'm totally badass," the path said. With the Naraka Path. The Naraka Path took out its giant sword and began to bash each of the ninjas' heads flat. It swung its sword, hitting them, but also draining them of their chakra. The Naraka Path swung its sword, hitting one of them on the back of their legs, which sent them falling backwards. The path then hit the ninja who was falling backwards in the stomach with its sword, making the ninja hit the ground harder. The path then swung its gigantic sword upwards, catching a guy on the chin and scraping his skin off. As the path brought his sword upwards and over the guy's head, the man dead fell on his knees and then fell forward onto the ground. The path turned and swung his sword, hitting two men at the same time, and smashed them up against the wall. He drained their chakra and then began to attack the last ninja. He appeared behind her and she turned to see him. She tried to throw a punch, but it was caught in his hand. He then squeezed her hand so hard that it broke. She yelped in pain, but he just kicked the woman straight into a wall. The woman on impact broke her neck. The path then began to wrap his sword back up. Back with the Animal Path. The Animal Path kicked the man who was on top of it up into the air and ran through hand seals quick. Would release root tentacles. Suddenly sharp roots shot out of the ground and pierced the man, going straight through him while he was in the air. The path got up and got out of the way as the dead man slid down the roots and hit the ground. Blood made a pool everywhere around the body. The path then put his hand down and there was smoke. When the smoke disappeared, there in front of him were 3 summoned dogs. Each having the Rinnegan, they began their attack on the ninjas. The dogs jumped on each of them and bit their necks, and then they would jump to the next person. The path then went to hand seals. Would release would prison. Suddenly would came out of nowhere and made a box around the ninja. The dogs dispersed, so only the ninja were still in the box. Some tried to get out by digging on the ground, but it was too late. The path put out his hand, which was open, and he began to close it. As he closed his hand, the wooden box began to shrink in size. Suddenly he closed his hand into a fist, and the wooden box got so small, it killed everyone inside. Screams were heard, and blood came out of the cracks in the wood. With Naruto. "It seems your little ninjas couldn't defeat my path's Orochimaru," Naruto said. Naruto smashed his hands on the ground, and in a poof of smoke every single path was in the room with them. Orochimaru looked at Naruto with a face of disgust. "It seems you have gotten out of my trap. But how?" Orochimaru asked. Naruto then lifted up his hat to reveal his eyes. Orochimaru saw them, and his face went even paler. "It can't be possible. Only one person I know has those eyes, and he isn't you," Orochimaru said. Naruto knew who he was talking about. Even though he only talked to him for a second or two, he knew. "Well, it is your time to die, Orochimaru," Mizo said. Orochimaru looked at them with a smile. "It's a good thing I am not here then," Orochimaru said. Suddenly, in a poof of smoke, he and the boy disappeared. Naruto looked at the empty space in front of them with a surprise. "Damn, it wasn't him. Just a fucking Kagebushin," Mizo said. Suddenly there was a loud boom. The room then began to shake. "Shit, we have to get out of here," He must have rigged the place to blow, Naruto said. They all turned and ran through the door, which took them to where the cells were. The people in the cells were screaming for them to get them out. Mizo motioned to help them, but Naruto grabbed her and kept her going. We cannot get out if we help them. We have to keep going, Naruto said, pulling Mizo behind. Mizo looked back at them with a sorrowful face, but knew Naruto was right. They then began to make their way down the hall, as the roof behind them began to collapse. They made it to where the hallway split and ran down the one in front of them. The building was crumbling behind them as ground from up above came down through the roof. They could see the light ahead of them and jumped out of the doorway before the roof fell on them. They got up and looked back at the now destroyed base. Naruto looked at Mizo, and they began to head out of the forest, so there could be no more attacks they could not see coming. Naruto, his paths, and Mizo made it all the way to Spring Country. There they camped out in the woods knowing they would be safe. Naruto had the paths make a fire and set up camp. He then sent them to go and sleep. Naruto then took out the file he took from the animal path and looked at it as he and Mizo sat around the fire. Mizo, being curious to what he was looking at, sat beside him and looked on the file. What she read made her very angry. File classified. Type invasion. I have gathered my forces and have been planning this for months. I have studied their moves and their guard changes. This will be the perfect time to take control of Konoha. I have already killed the Kazekage and have taken his seat in Suna. No one suspects anything. The tension between Suna and Konoha have been stretched, and so I will use this to my advantage. I will use my own forces and the Suna ninja to attack Konoha during the Chunin exams, which will be in a few days. I will send my elite in as a genin team and also send a sand team along with them. I will make sure that the Kazekage's son be on the sand team which I send. I will tell Suna of the plan, and they will be more than happy to attack, thinking I am their beloved Kazekage. During the second part of the exam, I will finally get what I want. I will mark Sasuke Uchiha with my cursed seal. Knowing he wants revenge on Mizo for killing their clan, he will come to me for power. Then when he comes to me, I will use him as my new body. Once the third part of the exam comes along, I will then sound the attack and I will take over Konoha. Naruto and Mizo both read the entire file. They both were angered hearing about an invasion of their home. What could he want with my brother? Mizo asked. Naruto, you could see pondering that question. Most likely he wants your brother for his Sharingan. Taking over Konoha is probably just a bonus, Naruto said. We can't let this happen. We have to stop him, Mizo said. Yes, I know that, but how are we even going to get near Konoha? You're a missing nin, remember? Naruto asked. We could go as a team there to take the exams. You, I, and one of your paths would make a team. Your other paths could also make up 2 teams. So we would have 3 different teams, Mizo said. Yes, that's a good plan, but have you noticed that all of my paths are missing nin and Kages? I think everyone would notice them, Naruto said. Not if they wear mask. We can all put on mask and make up some lame-ass story about why we all are wearing them. You know, it's a good plan, and we can even wear the clothes we have now just with the mask. They would never know it is us, Mizo said. Naruto knew she was right. But what country should we say we are from? And anyways, we don't have any village headbands, Naruto said. That why we go and take some, Mizo said. From which village? We need to pick a village that most likely wouldn't have another team in the exams, Naruto said. How about we take headbands from Waterfall Village, which is near here, Mizo said. Naruto liked the idea and they decided that they would go tonight. Naruto woke the paths up and they snuck in Waterfall Village and took 9 headbands from their inventory. They even took 9 Hunter nin masks, which were also in the armory. When they got everything they need, they went back to their camping site and got some needed sleep. In the morning, they got up and had breakfast. They then looked at the file to when the Chunin exams would be. They then saw that the file was dated 2 days ago and saw that the Chunin exams would start tomorrow. They all put their mask on, each being like a one-way mirror. The person who is wearing the mask can see out, but people looking in cannot see their face. They then made their way towards Fire Country. They were going to join the Chunin exams. Naruto Chapter 5 Start. Naruto, his paths, and Mizo made their way towards the gate of Konoha. Their blood pumping now, as they are finally returning to their village. They had their hats, mask, and headbands on. Their headbands were on their left arms. They both looked ahead. They could see the gate now, and their blood was now pumping harder than ever. They were finally home. They walked up to the gates and walked straight past the guards. The guards looked at them. "Hey, stop," one of the guards said. The paths, Naruto and Mizo stopped. "Show me your papers," the guard said. "Oh shit, we forgot about the papers," Mizo thought. Suddenly one of Naruto's paths pulled papers out of his cloak and handed them to the guard. The guard looked at the papers and nodded. He handed the papers back to the path. "You may go. Good luck in the Chunin exams," the guard said. They kept walking until they reached a place where they could stop. Naruto and Mizo looked at each other. "It feels good to be home, doesn't it?" Naruto said, looking around. They had made their way to an alleyway, and they both sat down, taking in the feeling of being home again and seeing all the people they cared about. They quickly got up and got their feelings out of the way. They knew that if they were to stop this invasion, then they could not stand there and gawk at them finally being home. "I didn't know you could forge papers," Mizo said. They walked out of the alleyway. "See, I'm just that badass," Naruto said, making Mizo laugh. They quickly asked directions to see where they had to go to get to the Chunin exams. They found out they had to go to the academy, so they may take the first test there. Great, going back to the academy, Naruto thought. Naruto looked at Mizo. Even though he couldn't see her face, he knew she didn't feel that comfortable here. He put his hand on her shoulder, and she stopped. "It's okay. No one knows, and I'm here with you, so you'll be fine. I'll take whatever bitch tries to attack you," Naruto said. "Thanks, Naruto," Mizo said, smiling under her mask. She felt better when Naruto was there to protect her. Even though she knew that she could take care of herself against almost any enemy, it was still nice to have him there. As they walked to the academy, Naruto still knowing where it was, villagers looked at them. They had something to look at. They saw 7 huge figures in cloaks and wearing straw hats and masks. Also, to make it worse, there was one that had a big-ass sword on his back. Naruto then felt something like a pull. He stopped, as did everyone following him. He turned and looked towards his right. He looked down an alleyway and saw the next street on the other side. "What's wrong?" Mizo asked. Naruto began walking down the alleyway towards the other street. Mizo followed him, but his paths kept going towards the academy. "I don't know," Naruto said. He and Mizo made their way through the alleyway and turned to see a fight about to break out. There was this one kid with a cat costume and makeup on, holding this one kid by his collar. Naruto looked at the kid and noticed he was smaller than the guy. About to step in, he saw someone from a tree nearby throw a rock and hit the cat guy in the head. The cat guy dropped the kid, which ran to a pink-haired girl in front of him. The cat guy looked up to the tree and saw the boy. Naruto looked at the boy, and so did Mizo. "Brother," Mizo said. "What was that for?" the cat guy asked. "People shouldn't pick on people smaller than them," Sasuke said. The cat guy smirked. "Come down here, so I can kick your ass." "Kankuro, stop before I kill you," someone said in the tree. Kankuro and the blonde girl beside him looked up at the tree in fright. Sasuke turned to see a red-haired boy behind him on the same branch. "How did he get there without me detecting him?" Sasuke thought. "I'm sorry, Gaara. I shouldn't have done that," Kankuro said. Naruto looked at the Gaara boy. "He is the kid I feel a pull to." Naruto then noticed the boy's chakra. "He has demonic chakra like mine. He must be a Jinchuriki," Naruto thought. Naruto just began to walk away back down the alley as he saw the people he was watching leaving. Mizo stood at the edge of the alleyway, still looking at her brother. "I'm so sorry, Sasuke," she thought. She turned, saw Naruto walking back towards the other street, and ran to catch up with him. They both walked out of the alleyway and towards the academy. Naruto then laughed a little. "What?" Mizo asked. "Nothing, it is nothing," Naruto said. With his paths. His Naraka path, which is the body of Kisame, stood in front of the two Chunin in front of a door. "I told you we are not moving," one of them said. "I am telling you, just go ahead and release your Jinjutsu, or I will take my sword off my back and ram it so far up your ass that your gay friend over there will be horny," the path said, pointing at the other genin. Both of the genin looked frightened now and released the Jinjutsu on themselves, and the door, showing it to only be the second floor. The genin turned into two Chunin. "Thank you," the path said. "Back with Naruto." Naruto smiled all the way to the academy. When they walked in the door, they started heading up the stairs to the third floor. When they got there, they saw Sasuke once more. They stopped and let Sasuke and his team talk to their sensei, which had gravity-defying hair and a headband covering one eye. Naruto noticed that the pink-haired girl from earlier was on his team. Konoha's copycat Nin, Naruto thought. Mizo looked at her brother and smiled. At least he was all right, but what about their mother? Once Sasuke's team went inside, Naruto and Mizo walked past the Leaf Jonin and walked inside. Every single one of the Jonin looked at them with confused glares. "Nice welcoming party, Naruto," Mizo said. "Also, if you haven't voted yet for a harem or no, then go to my profile and vote on my poll. Follow the instructions, thank you." Naruto smiled. They walked through the door to see all the genin about to take the test stare at them. They then all looked away and went back to their own business. Naruto looked around and saw his paths, which had their own corner. Mizo smirked because no one was around his paths, as though they were afraid of them. Mizo and Naruto joined his paths in their corner and waited. Mizo kept an eye on Sasuke until she saw something. "Naruto, look, it's the four-eyed bitch Orochimaru had with him," Mizo said, pointing towards a white-haired boy with glasses. Naruto turned and saw the four-eyed kid talking to Sasuke. Mizo was about to go over there, but her hand was grabbed by Naruto. "Don't, you'll blow our cover," Naruto said. Mizo stopped. She knew he was right, but she wanted to go beat that kid to death. "Fine, but I swear, if we ever fight him, I get to beat that kid to death," Mizo said. Naruto smiled and turned to see the Chunin examiner. "Hello everyone, my name is Marino Ibiki, and I will be your examiner for the first examen. Everyone grab a sheet and find a seat in the room behind me," Ibiki said. Everyone then grabbed a piece of paper and went to the tomb behind the man, where they were placed in random seating. Naruto was placed in the top row, while his paths were placed on every row. He turned and looked at Mizo, who was on the row down from him. He then took off his straw hat, as did his paths. Everyone who was in the room wanted to get a good look at their faces, but was disappointed when they saw their mask. When everyone was in the room, Ibiki began to talk. "Now for the first exam, you shall answer the 9 questions on your sheet of paper. The 10th question will be administered by me. Each team has 10 points. Every time you are caught cheating, your team loses 2 points. If you hit 0, then you are out of the exams. This test will be 45 minutes long. Begin." Naruto was now confused at Ibiki's instructions. He looked down on his own paper to see questions. He looked at the questions and found out they were impossible to answer. "What the fuck? I can't answer these questions. The only way I could do this is to cheat. That's it. He wants us to cheat to see our information gathering skills without getting caught," Naruto said. He then looked around and saw Mizo was already writing down answers. She must be copying off of someone that knows them. There must be people they have set in the room to have the answers on their sheet for us to cheat off of, Naruto thought. Naruto put his hand on his desk, and there was a small puff of smoke barely noticeable. When he lifted up his hand, there was a tiny little bird with Rinnegan eyes. He then sent the summon to Mizo to get the answers from her. He looked at Mizo, who had just seen the summon. Mizo knew what he wanted and let the summon see her paper. Naruto, being able to see through the eyes of the summon, copied the answers on his sheet of paper. He then got the summon to come back. He ripped off a piece of paper from the test and wrote on it. He then sent it with the summon back to Mizo. Mizo got the message and looked at it. "How did you get the answers?" the note said. Mizo then wrote down her reply and sent it back with the summon. Naruto got the note and read it. "I already knew the answers, didn't you?" Mizo said in the note. Naruto mad now sent back a reply. Mizo read the note. "Smartass," Naruto said in his reply. Ibiki looked at the clock and noticed time was up. A lot of teams had been sent home because they had been caught cheating, and there was a lot of teams left. Ibiki looked at the remaining genin. "Now for your last question. If you get this answer wrong, you will be put out of the exams," Ibiki said. Everyone gulped. They didn't want to leave the exam so early. "Also, you will never be able to come back and do the Chunin exams, meaning you will always be genin," Ibiki said. Everyone hearing this was shocked, even Naruto. Mizo knew the test since she had Ibiki when she was a genin. "Now if you decide to leave, then your whole team has to leave. Choose now," Ibiki said. Everyone looked at each other. Naruto then saw Sasuke look at Sakura. You could tell she was feeling the pressure. "I know Kiba won't be able to answer the last question," she thought. She was about to raise her hand until she saw a great stare from Sasuke. She then decided not to raise her hand to leave. Mizo smiled, liking the fact her brother would stay in. When this was done, over half the genin had left. Ibiki looked at the smaller group he had in front of them. "Well, everyone that is still here in this room passes." Hearing this, everyone was in a state of confusion except Mizo. Everyone was about to start asking questions, until suddenly a ball came flying through the window of the classroom. Everyone turned to see it was not a ball but a hot woman. Every guy looked at the new woman who was now in the room. She had purple hair, big breast, and a nice butt. Her curves were great, and she was very beautiful. "My name is Anko. I am your second examiner. Please make your way to Training Ground 44. The next exam starts in 1 hour," Anko said. She then disappeared into smoke, and all the guys' eye candy were gone. "You heard her. Get moving," Ibiki said. Naruto got back with his paths and Mizo, and they headed towards the training ground. They knew that the training grounds went in number order, so they just followed each number. When they finally arrived at the training ground, everyone was amazed at what they were looking at. In front of them was a huge forest with a tall gate around it. Every genin went to where they saw the Anko women and waited. Mizo touched Naruto's shoulder and whispered in his ear, "Orochimaru's here. I can feel him." Naruto nodded, saying that he heard her. They then waited for everyone to arrive. When Anko saw that it has been an hour, she looked at the genin. "All right, you maggots, this is Training Ground 44. It is known as the Forest of Death, for obvious reasons. Each team will one of these scrolls." She held up a scroll with the kanji for earth, and one with the kanji for heaven. "You will either get an earth scroll or a heaven scroll. To finish this part of the exam, you must have both scrolls at the end. Once you go into the forest, you will try and get the other scroll you do not have. Once you do, you will go to a tower that is in the direct center of the forest. Once you have done that, you have completed my part of the exam. Also, I need you to sign these waivers, saying that I am not responsible for you if you die," Anko said. She then held up a waiver. She had everyone get one and sign it. Naruto just made up names for each of his paths. Once everyone was done signing the waivers, Anko looked at them. "Now to get another scroll, you will have to take it from another team. Once you have been given your scroll, you will then make your way to the gate number we will assign you and wait for the exam to start. Now everyone fall in line to get your scroll." Everyone got with their team and got in the line. Each team would go into a tent and come out with a scroll and then go to their respective gates. Naruto had a plan for an easy pass. He leaned over to Mizo. "Okay, one of my path's teams will get a different scroll than us. What we will do it take their scroll and then look for your brother. Orochimaru said he would be making his move during this exam, so we have to stop him. Naruto said. What about the other path team? Mizo asked. I have already thought about this. I have made a Kagebushin of my animal path and put it in the paths team. I then sent the original animal path back to Konoha, so when we get the scroll one of my paths team, I will then summon all my paths back to the village. Then it will just be you, my path I'll pick to be on our team, and me left. Naruto said. Mizo thought over the plan and thought it was a great plan. What will the paths do in the village while they wait? Mizo asked. I'll have them search for clues about Orochimaru's invasion and where he might be hiding, Naruto said. Mizo nodded. Then Naruto's Deva path separate from the other paths and got near Mizo and Naruto. He was now on their team. Naruto and his team walked into the tent and got their scroll. Here is a heaven scroll, and you will be at gate 16. The Chunin said, handing them their scroll. Naruto and his group head out of the tent and went to their gate. The other paths, which made up 2 teams, got their scrolls and then headed towards their gate. One of my paths teams got an earth scroll. We will meet them quickly in the forest to get their scroll, and then my animal path will summon them back to the village to start looking, Naruto said. Mizo nodded and turned towards the gate. I can't wait to murder that snake, Mizo said. If he shows up in there, can you lead us to him? Naruto asked Mizo. Of course I can. I would know his chakra anywhere, Mizo said. If for some reason we need help, I'll summon my paths back except for my animal path, so just in case it can summon them back to Konoha, Naruto said. Suddenly there was a big boom, and the gate in front of them opened. It was time for them to go and meet up with the path teams. Naruto, Mizo, and the Deva path quickly jumped into the gate and began to head towards the teams. They heard screams of terror and pain in the first 5 minutes of them being there, but they still headed towards their objective. They soon met up with the path teams and carried out the plan, and now it was just Naruto, Mizo, and Naruto's Deva path left. Naruto put both of the scrolls in his pocket, and he looked at Mizo. He saw something that he had never seen before. There was a huge bug on her back. Mizo, there is something on your back, Naruto said, about to kill it. Before he could, the bug bit her on the neck and knocked her out. Shit, Naruto said, and he killed the bug and caught Mizo before she hit the ground. Her body began to turn blue, and she began to shake. Naruto picked her up in his arms and began to run to find shelter. Don't die on me. If I bring you back, I won't have the strength to do much, Naruto said. He found a cave and went inside of it. He sat her down and got a scroll out. He wiped blood on the scroll and a 10, and bed came out. Naruto laid Mizo on the tent. He walked about 10 yards away and put his hand on the ground. Shinra Tensei, he said. Suddenly a huge crater appeared in the earth. He then began to run through hand seals. Water release, water wave, Naruto said. Suddenly water appeared out of thin air and rushed into the crater, making a pond. Naruto took cloth out of his pocket and dipped it in the ice-cold water. He wringed it out and went over and put it on Mizo's forehead. She had stopped seizing, but was now barely breathing. He put his head on her chest and heard her heart going into overdrive. The bug must have given her some poison. I have to get it out quickly, Naruto thought. He flipped Mizo over on her back and took off her cloak, so she was now in a tank top. He looked at the bite mark, which was now huge and purple. He then took out a kunai and cut the bite, stuck his mouth on it, and began to suck her blood. When he got enough in his mouth, he would spit it out. Once he did this a few times, he stopped. He looked down and saw a purple substance flowing out of her body. That must be the potion, Naruto thought. He then bandaged the small cut and turned her back over. He put his head back to her chest and heard her heart going back to normal. She was going to be okay. It'll take her a few days to get back up and running. Hopefully Orochimaru doesn't show up until then, Naruto thought. He looked upon Mizo and frowned. He almost lost her. If it wasn't for being out in the world, and traveling and learning a couple medical things, she would have been dead. I almost lost her. I can't lose her. She's my only friend, Naruto thought. Mizo sat there still sweating and knocked out cold. He got the Deva path to go out and hunt for food. Took the path a while, but it brought back a boar. The path then scraped the skin off and cooked the meat. Naruto and the path eat, while Naruto just filled a cup he had carved from some wood with the water from the pond, and gave it to Mizo every so often. He would also change out the rag. This might set back our plans, but if worse comes to worse, I'll go and find Orochimaru, and leave the Deva path here to watch her. Naruto thought. He knew Orochimaru's chakra enough so that he could sense it if he tried. But a little help will work, Naruto said. He ran through hand seals and said, Rain Tiger at will technique, Naruto said. He put his hand to the ground, and a seal appeared. Suddenly it began to rain outside. The rain droplets were infused with Naruto's chakra. So every time the rain hit a person in the forest, Naruto could find the. When the rain came down, it hit every animal and every ninja in the forest. Naruto could practically see the forest in his mind. He sat beside the bed which Mizo was on and waited. 3 days later. Mizo had gotten better, but still had not gained consciousness. Naruto had been searching for Orochimaru's chakra for the past 3 days, but nothing had shown up. Naruto had found Sasuke and his team as they were traveling through the forest, searching for a scroll. He knew that if he followed Sasuke, he would find Orochimaru. Since he found Sasuke, he sent his Deva path to tail him just in case. So far nothing has happened. With the Deva path. The path looked around and finally found Sasuke and his teammates. They had stopped on the bottom of the forest, and they were looking at Kiba. I have to take a whiz. Can I take a piss, Sakura? Kiba said. Are you serious? Sakura answered. Kiba was jumping up and down right now because he needed to go to the bathroom. Fine, but before you go we need to make up a phrase which only we can know. So if we ever get separate, then we know if that person is who they say they are. Sasuke said. Fine, but hurry up, I need to go, Kiba said. Okay, how about this one? What are ninjas supposed to do? Look underneath the underneath, Sasuke said. Okay, got it. I'm going to the bathroom, Kiba said, running into the bushes. Sakura had a look of disgust on her face, but it was quickly gone. Suddenly there was a big gust of wind. Naruto used chakra to stick to the tree, while Sasuke and Sakura were thrown to the ground. They each got up and rubbed their heads. Kiba came out of the bush rubbing his head too. Damn, what was that? Kiba said. Sasuke looked at Kiba. What is the phrase? Kiba looked at Sasuke and smiled. What are ninjas supposed to do? Look underneath the underneath. Suddenly Sasuke threw a kunai at Kiba. What the hell, Sasuke? Kiba said. You're not the real Kiba. The real Kiba would never have remembered that, Sasuke said. Kiba then smiled and a long tongue came out of his mouth. Suddenly Kiba's body changed to that of a grass-neen woman. Kukukuku, you got me, Sasuke, the woman said. Back with Naruto. Orochimaru is here, Naruto said. Naruto looked down at Mizo to see her still asleep. He couldn't leave her alone by herself, even if he put a Shinjutsu on the cave they were in. I have to summon my paths, Naruto thought. He got a few feet away from Mizo and smashes his hands towards the ground. Suddenly appearing out of smoke, the paths that were summoned by the animal path earlier were now there. They quickly turned and ran out of the cave to go help the other path. Naruto ended his rain jutsu that he had on the forest, so the sun came out. With the Deva path. The path looked down upon the grass ninja that just let down her Jinjutsu. It quickly jumped down from its perch in the tree, in between Orochimaru and Sasuke. Surprised faces looked at the Deva path that was now in front of Orochimaru. Go run, I'll hold him off, the Deva path said. Sasuke, not knowing who this person was, grabbed Sakura and jumped out of sight. Orochimaru quickly let the skin that he stole from the grass ninja down to show his true pale face. Orochimaru tried to jump after Sasuke, but was stopped. Bansho Tenin, the Deva path said. Suddenly Orochimaru was pulled by an invisible force towards the path. Orochimaru, not having time to react, turned and saw himself getting closer to the path fast, and was punched in the face, and was suddenly sit flying backwards into a tree. Orochimaru slowly got up and looked at the masked path. "Who are you?" Orochimaru asked. "I am the one who you almost destroyed in your base," the path said. Suddenly Orochimaru's eyes widened in fear, because he knew the power of this man. "I thought I killed you when I blew up that base," Orochimaru said. "I guess not. You shall not make it out of here alive, Orochimaru," the path said. "That's what you think, hidden shadow snake hands," Orochimaru said. He held up his hands and snakes flew out of his sleeves at high speeds heading towards the Deva path. "Shinra Tensei," the path said. The snakes were blown backwards as well as Orochimaru into the air. Suddenly Orochimaru turned into a poof of smoke. "Down here," Orochimaru said. The path looked down to see Orochimaru's head stick out of the ground. Orochimaru quickly opened his mouth and a large sword shot out of it heading for the path's body. The path couldn't move quickly enough and he was stabbed in the right shoulder. Since the sword kept on coming out of Orochimaru's mouth, the path was sent flying into a tree, where he stopped, but the sword didn't. It went straight through his shoulder into the tree. The sword hilt came out of Orochimaru's mouth. Orochimaru's body came out of the ground and grabbed the hilt and pushes on it, making the sword go into the path. The path cringed in pain. "Kuku, it seems like you are not as powerful as you think you are," Orochimaru said. The path looked up at the snake and held his hand out. "Shinra Tensei," the path said. Suddenly an invisible force sending Orochimaru backwards and falling onto the ground, and the path took this time to take the sword out of him and throw it to the ground. Orochimaru got up quickly, took look and see the path, but the path was nowhere to be seen. The path appeared behind Orochimaru. He punched Orochimaru in the back, sending him flying into the air. Orochimaru yelped from the pain. The path then took out a chakra pole with a sharp end on it. He held it out in front of him and pointed it at Orochimaru. "Bansho Tenin," the path says. Suddenly the next thing Orochimaru knew was that he was being pulled back again, at high speeds. He looked at the path and saw the pole. He knew what was about to happen. Orochimaru then hit the pole, and it stabbed straight through his body. The path held Orochimaru there. "How does it feel to die?" the path asked Orochimaru. "Tell me when it happens to you." "Clone Great Explosion Technique," Orochimaru said. Suddenly Orochimaru blew up in a huge explosion. The path was sent flying back into many trees, knocking them down as he went through them. Orochimaru appeared in a tree above where the path stopped breathing hard. That kick that sent him flying did a lot of damage on him, and he was getting tired fast. He then saw the path slowly get up from where he landed and brush himself off. The path then looked up to where Orochimaru was in the tree. Orochimaru ran through some hand seals and said, "Temporary paralysis technique," Orochimaru said. For some reason the path could not move, and Orochimaru knew this. Orochimaru quickly jumped down from the tree and quickly ran over to stab the path in the heart with a kunai. Orochimaru swung the kunai at the path's heart, but it was quickly stopped when the path could move again. The path grabbed Orochimaru's wrist and shoved his palm into Orochimaru's stomach. "Shinra Tensei," the path said. Orochimaru was then sent back by an invisible force, but instead of flying alone, the path kept hold of Orochimaru and flew through the air with him. The path delivered punches after punches to the face of Orochimaru through their flight. Orochimaru gaining back his breath, he turned the path around, and so the path was on the bottom. Orochimaru punched the path in the face, sending him flying straight towards the ground. Orochimaru landed on the ground safely, and smoke arose from the impact of the path's body hitting the ground. When the smoke disappeared, Orochimaru saw that the hit made an impact in the ground. He then saw the path's body. If I remember the Jujutsu right, there are more of you. I can't defeat all of you. I can sure as hell defeat one of you, Orochimaru said. The path in the crater slowly began to get up. When he got up, he brushed himself off and looked at Orochimaru. Orochimaru was in shock that the path actually got back up. You are becoming a real nuisance, the path said. The path was worn out and you could tell. It had maybe half of its energy left. How are you still able to get back up? Orochimaru asked. The path answered by starting to go through hand seals, demonic ice crystal mirrors. Suddenly ice mirrors formed around Orochimaru. They were all separate by small cracks, but they were reflecting Orochimaru's image everywhere. Suddenly the Deva path appeared in all of them. It is your time to die, the path said. Suddenly the path threw a kunai at Orochimaru. Since his image was reflected, Orochimaru had no idea where the kunai was coming from and was hit in the leg. Flashback. Naruto was making his way towards the land of water. He had been traveling for days now and needed a place to rest. He sent his paths out to search for a place to stay, and they quickly found lodging at a nearby hotel. Naruto began to make his way there when he heard crying. He followed the crying until he found a little boy on a bridge crying. He walked over to the little boy and put his hand on his shoulder. What's wrong? Naruto asked. The boy couldn't be much younger than him, but he thought he could still help. The boy looked up to see Naruto there and frowned. I killed my family, the boy said. How could you do that? You are just a small boy, Naruto asked. The boy then held out his hand and water droplets began to form above his hand. Suddenly they froze and created ice. He can use ice release, Naruto thought. My father killed my mother, then attacked me. I killed him by creating ice just like I did just now, the boy said. I can do that to see, Naruto said. Naruto held out his hand and did the same thing the boy did. The boy looked in amazement. This other boy could do the same thing he could. You can do it just like me, the boy said. Yes, I can. I can do it quite well. I can stay here and teach you for a while, but I'll have to go, Naruto said. The boy smiled and hugged Naruto. What is your name? Naruto asked. My name is Haku, the boy said. Flashback end. Orochimaru pulled the kunai out of his leg and waited for the path's next move. The path quickly jumped out of the one mirror he was in and punched Orochimaru in the face, sending him to the ground. The path then quickly jumped into another mirror. Orochimaru slowly got up and stood in his defensive stance. He somehow moves faster while using this jutsu, Orochimaru thought. The path then jumped out of the mirror he was in and attacked Orochimaru. Orochimaru caught a glimpse of him and bit his thumb. He then wiped it on a tattoo on his arm. I have you now, summoning jutsu, Orochimaru said. There was a large poof of smoke. The path's mirrors were now just water on THR ground, and the Deva path was thrown far away into a rock, which he cracked when he hit. Orochimaru now stood on a huge snake easily as big as a tower in Amigakure. The path fell off the rock onto the ground and hit the ground. Orochimaru, you better have sacrifices for me to have, since you have summoned me here, the giant snake said. I'll give you sacrifices, once you eat him, Orochimaru said, pointing towards the Deva path which was now on the ground. The giant snake now looked at the Deva path, and it hissed. The Deva path slowly got to its feet and looked at Orochimaru on his giant snake. That shot took a lot out of him. He smashed his hand to the ground, and a pillar of smoke, just as big as Orochimaru's summoned smoke, came into the air. When it disappeared, a giant six-headed dog was in its place. Each of the eyes of the six-headed dog had the Rinnegan, and they were all staring at Orochimaru. The dog suddenly began to run towards the giant snake. The giant snake with Orochimaru on its head shot at the dog with great speed. The snake almost bit the dog, but when it was close enough the dog split into 6 different dogs, and they all dodged the attack. Each dog then used their own speed to bite down on the snake. The snake hissed in pain, and then disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Following suit, the dogs disappeared also. This battle has probably caused a lot of fuss. I have to end this quickly before the Umbu, or even the Hokage get here, Orochimaru thought. Orochimaru landed on a tree branch near the Deva path and looked down on him. It has been really great seeing you, but I must leave, Orochimaru said. He was about to leave when suddenly he was surrounded by the other paths of pain. They had finally made it to the battle scene. You've got to be shitting me, Orochimaru said. Nope, the human path said as the path punched Orochimaru, sending him flying through the air. While in mid-air, the Azura path appeared above him and kicked him downwards towards the ground. Orochimaru could no longer breathe since he was kicked so hard in the gut. The Deva path tired fell down and watched the battle going on in front of him. Orochimaru hit the ground with such power that it sent smoke flying everywhere. When the smoke disappeared, there was a huge crater with Orochimaru in the middle of it. They are here, I must leave, Orochimaru said. He then began to sink into the ground. The paths, seeing this all, jumped in the crater about to stop him, but it was too late. Orochimaru was gone. The Deva path, now able to move, walked over to the crater. With Naruto. Shit, he got away. I need to summon the Deva path here so we can go on to the next round. The others can just be summoned back into the village to continue their search, Naruto thought. At that time, the animal path summoned them back to Konoha to continue searching. Naruto himself then summoned the Deva path back to him. With the little medical jutsu that he knew, Naruto healed most of his wounds, but the Deva path still had to rest. Suddenly, as he was doing his medical jutsu, red chakra began to cover the Deva path's body. The red chakra healed all of the Deva path's wounds, and when the red chakra receded, the Deva path didn't even have a scratch on him. Must have been the fox, Naruto thought. He then turned his attention back to Mizo. He changed her towel and laid it down on her forehead. I wonder if the fox will do the same thing to Mizo if I allow it to, Naruto thought. He then turned Mizo over on her back and began to do some medical jutsu. Suddenly, like before, red chakra began to envelope Mizo. It healed the wound on her back, and Naruto was now surprised. Mizo then began to open her eyes. What happened? Naruto looked at Mizo happily. You were bitten by a poisonous bug. It almost killed you, but I got the poison out quick enough before it could do any real-time damage, Naruto said. Mizo then remembered feeling a lot of pain in her back, and then blacking out. How long was I out? She asked. 3 days, Naruto said. She then remembered Orochimaru. What about Orochimaru, has he come yet? She asked. Naruto then proceeded to tell her about everything that took place while she was bedridden. She had a look of disappointment on her face, because she wasn't able to fight the snake. She looked down at herself and noticed she was wearing her tank top, showing her cleavage. She got up quickly and grabbed her cloak. She then put it on, embarrassed about what she was wearing. She then began to head towards the cave's exit. Naruto got up. You shouldn't be moving right now. You just got better. We will rest here for the night, and then we can go to the tower tomorrow, Naruto said. Mizo knew he was right, and went and laid back on the bed. She looked over at Naruto and frowned. Where will you sleep? Mizo said. I can sleep on the ground, it is no problem, Naruto said, smiling. Mizo, not wanting him to sleep on the ground, said, Why don't you come and sleep in the bed with me? Realizing what she just said, she blushed. I mean, if you don't want it, that's fine. Naruto blushed also, but climbed in the bed and faced away from Mizo. Thank you, he said. No problem, Mizo said. They both then went and headed off to sleep. Before Naruto went to sleep, though, he had his Deva path put a genjutsu on the cave so no one could come in. The next morning, Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see bright sunshine. He looked up and saw something he didn't expect. He saw Mizo on top of him, sleeping on his chest. He blushed and looked at the sunlight hit her face. She slowly began to move, and she finally moved and looked at Naruto in the face. She then looked and saw she was sleeping on him, and blushed. They quickly jumped out of the bed, and turned away from each blushing. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to," Naruto said. He turned towards Mizo, who was now looking at him, and they both blushed again. "It's fine. Just don't do it again, all right?" she said. He smiled and scratched the back of his head. "Of course no, Mizo-chan," Naruto said. "Mizo-chan, I like the sound of that," Mizo thought, thinking of the way Naruto's muscles felt. Naruto looked out of the cave and saw the sunlight. He turned to Mizo and said, "We have to go if we want to get settled in at the tower. We only have a day left if I remember. I think that's what it said in the waiver," Naruto said. They got over their embarrassed states and packed everything up into storage scrolls. His Deva path released the Genjutsu on the cave, and they headed out towards the tower. They reached the tower in very little time and entered it. They made their way through the corridors inside and found the main office. They went inside and looked around. There was a woman sitting at a desk which looked up and saw them. "Do you have both of the scrolls?" the woman asked. Naruto took out both of the scrolls and showed the person at the desk. "Well, tomorrow you will meet with the others who passed the test in the testing room at 5 p.m. Here are your room keys to stay the night. Good luck in the next round," the woman said, handing them each a key. She then took the scrolls from Naruto and gave them a map to tell them where everything is. She showed them where their rooms were located, and they were off on their way. Naruto and the Devapath shared a room together, while Mizo, being a girl, got her own room, since she was the only one from her team. They decided they would meet up with each other in the cafeteria they had in the tower, in an hour. Once they found each other, they went to the cafeteria. Once they walked in the doors of the cafeteria, all eyes were on them. They looked around and saw a lot of the people they saw from before. They saw the team with the redhead boy named Gaara, and then they saw Sasuke's team. "Looks like my little brother made it," Mizo thought. They each got their lunch and sat down at a table far away from everyone. Every time they would take a bite, they would lift up their mask, but then put them down so no one could see their faces, even the Devapath eat. Once they were done eating, they left the cafeteria just as they had entered it, quiet. Before they left the cafeteria, they felt a huge amount of killing intent. They turned and saw the kid with the glasses. "There's the bitch. Seems like Orochimaru got him through," Mizo whispered to Naruto. They then left to go to their separate rooms. This was the first time in a long time Naruto could get some sleep without worrying about someone coming in the night and killing him. He decided that he would go to sleep now, even though it was early in the afternoon, so he could be well rested for tomorrow. He sat in his bed for a while and thought about the events that had occurred yesterday. He had lost Orochimaru, and now he had no idea where he was. This was bad, but he knew the snake's plans, so all he could do now is sit back and wait for Orochimaru to make his move. Naruto chapter start. Naruto opened his eyes to see the ceiling of his room. He turned to the side to see his Devapath sleeping on the other bed. He did not want to think about anything right now, so he just went to the bathroom and got a shower. When he got out, he got a scroll and unsealed his bathroom things. He took care of himself so he smelled good, and also so his teeth would be cared for. He put on his cloak and his mask, and then took control of the Devapath on the bed next to his. The path got up and followed him to the cafeteria, where he met Mizo, who was already eating. Mizo looked up at them and smiled. "Glad to see you guys are awake. Yeah, let he and I go get our food real quick. We will be right back," Naruto said. Mizo nodded, saying okay, and Naruto and his path went to go get their food. Naruto came back to the table where Mizo was sitting and sat beside her. They quickly were done eating like last time and were out of the cafeteria before most of the other genin were up. Then they all went to Naruto's room. Here they began to talk about what was going to happen today. "Mizo, you have done this exam before. What will be their next exam?" Naruto asked. "With this many genins still left, they will probably hold preliminary rounds," Mizo said. Naruto looked at her confused. The preliminary rounds are when they randomly select 2 people to go one-on-one. The battle is refereed by a jonin, and they fight to see who gets to go to the finals. Mizo said. Really now, this creates a problem. Naruto said. What is that? Mizo asked. I can't have my path being seen. Orochimaru or his subordinates will notice him, and will get suspicious. Is there any way I can get my path out of the exams, and have it not affect us? Naruto asked. Mizo thought about it for a second. You can send your path down to the main office where you can ask to be taken out of the exams. They will have no choice but to let you out of the exams. It won't affect us since now we are at this stage. It is every man for himself, she said. Naruto, knowing this information, sent his path down to the main office as quick as possible to get out of the exam. Everything went according to plan, and his path was out of the exam. They then had someone begin to escort him back to the village. It worked, Naruto said. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Have you found any clues in the village? Mizo asked. No, I haven't. Since I fell asleep, they had to find an inn to stay at. They are beginning their search now though, Naruto said. Oh, Naruto, about the other morning, when we woke up in the cave, Mizo said. Naruto, hearing this, blushed. Yeah, what about it? He asked. We have been traveling together for a while, and ever since then I have had these feelings for you, Mizo said. What kind of feelings? Naruto asked. Mizo leaned in closer, so her face was inches from his. I think I love you, Mizo said. While you were almost dying, my heart broke. I felt I was going to lose you. I thought I would lose my best friend. I guess now that you say something, it was more than that. I think I love you, Alistash, Naruto said. Before he could finish his last word, Mizo locked lips with him. Mizo put her hands behind his head to pull him closer, to heighten the heated kiss. Naruto picked her up and put her back against the wall as he kisses her harder. He grabbed her right leg and made it wrap around his waist. He put his hand on her waist as they continued to make out. They did this for the next 5 minutes before they stopped to realize what they were doing. Naruto set her down on his bed, while he sat down on the other one. They both looked at each other. What does this mean? Naruto asked. I think it means we both have feelings for each other beyond friendship, Mizo said. So does this mean we are dating? Naruto asked. Mizo came in closer again and sat in his lap. She wrapped her arms around his neck and got close to his face. Not if you don't want to, she said. I think I love you, Mizo, and I know we are getting to this quick, but will you be my girlfriend? Naruto asked. Mizo smiled and kissed him hard. She then stopped and smiled again. So is that a yes or a no? You might have to do it again, so I am sure, Naruto said, smiling. She kissed him again. Their makeout session lasted for 30 minutes before both of them were sweating. We should stop for now and worry about tonight's rounds, Mizo said. Naruto, about to pout, knew she was right. They then began to go over what might happen tonight during the preliminary rounds of the exams. When they went to go for the second exam, they saw every team that passed. There was a team from Kumogakure, Sand, Sound, and 4 teams from Konoha. They all got into the bunch and waited for everything to start. The genins would not be quiet because they were too anxious. Please be quiet while the Hokage explains the conditions of the preliminary matches. It took the sickly special jonin almost twice as long to make the short speech, interrupted as it was by coughing spells. The crowd of tense genin quieted down. By now, people had digested the fact that a significantly smaller number of teams had emerged from the forest of death than anticipated. And without exception, they all looked like hell. Most of the Konoha proctors chalked it up to Anko's presence at the exam, but others wondered what had really happened. Thank you, Hayate. The Hokage rose and directed the full weight of his imperious presence toward the genin. The first 2 portions of the exam-tested skills required of Chunin-ranked ninja. Can you gather information without giving any away? Do you have the inner resolve to do what is required? Are you resourceful enough to survive in a hostile environment? All of you have performed admirably in those areas." The Hokage's words drew loud cheers as smiles broke out all around him. Naruto was impressed by the old man's skillful performance, which appeared sincere and genuine. As Hokage, Sarutobi must realize how hopelessly ill-prepared these genin were for what was to come. But he was the Kage of Konoha and Konoha only. That last bit was an important fact that many seemed to forget. Sarutobi Dano was not, contrary to popular belief, the guardian peacemaker of the entire world. Now that we have everything situated, let's begin the preliminaries for the third exam. These matches will be one-on-one battles which you will be fighting as though you were in a real-life confrontations. Now, since we have 24 participants, we are going to be doing 12 matches and the winners will advance to the finals. There will be no rules and you must fight until either your opponent dies, is unconscious, or forfeits. However, if Hayate says the match is over, do not continue, otherwise he will intervene and you might be joining your opponent in the hospital. Understood? The Hokage said. This scoreboard will randomly select 2 names. Once your name is selected on the board, please enter the arena while the others go up to the upper levels. The Hokage continued. Now, is there anyone that does not want to be in the Chunin exams any longer because they are too weak to fight from the second exam? Hayate asked. Naruto noticed Kankuro from Gaara's team raised his hand. He then saw the gray-haired boy with the glasses, who was Orochimaru's henchman, raise his hand also. Anyone else? Okay, you two will be escorted out of the building until examens are done. Hayate said. They were escorted out of the building. Hayate turned to the others. Now the preliminaries have begun. The 2 that see their name on the board behind me stay behind. The rest go up to the balconies. The moment he finished, the board came alive and began to cycle through the contestants before finally landing 2 names. Everyone else went up to the balconies to watch. I can't wait to see what power Konoha has, Naruto said. Akimichi Chuji versus Tsurugi Misumi. Chuji gulped loudly while Misumi just smirked under the veil that hid the lower part of his face. The rest of the genin gave the 2 a glance before going up to the catwalks, while the other 2 members of Team 10 gave the tubby boy a small reassuring smile. Once everyone was off the arena floor, Hayate stepped in the middle of the 2 boys before announcing the first match. The first match of the preliminary rounds between Akimichi Chuji and Tsurugi Misumi will begin now, shouted Hayate before dashing back a bit. The moment she finished, Misumi rushed forward and reared his right fist back before launching a punch that was aimed at the tubby boy's face. The said boy ducked under the attack and did a small roll to the side to avoid a kick that would have sent him flying. After getting a little distance, he formed 3 seals before rearing his own fist back. Bubenbaika no Jutsu, yelled the boy before launching it at his opponent. Chuji gritted his teeth when he saw his opponent parry his attack and come rushing towards him. The man reared his fist back again, only this time, when he launched it, his whole arm stretched a full 8 feet and hit him square in his left cheek. Choji quickly returned to his feet, and since his jutsu was cancelled, his arm was now back to normal. How did you dash? The man only chuckled before answering. I have the ability to manipulate my body. I can pop my bones out of their sockets and use my chakra to move my soft muscle tissue. Basically, I can stretch myself from as far as I wish so long as it's not too far. But since we are in this arena, I have perfect range to hit you with it. With that said, he cocked his fist back once more and sent it straight at the boy again. This time, however, Choji was ready and dodged the punch before grabbing his arm and, with little effort, swung him towards the wall where he collided with brutal force. The said man groaned as he climbed to his feet, only to look up and see the big-boned genin's gigantic fist come crashing down towards him. Cursing lightly, he quickly rolled to the side before rushing forward. Choji quickly cancelled his jutsu again before jumping back to avoid a kick that was aimed at his ribs. After that, he channeled chakra into his leg, and it grew just as big as his arm previously was, and sent his own kick that slammed into the man's chest, which sent him flying across the ring. Choji panted a bit while cancelling the jutsu again as he felt his chakra starting to get low. He knew he had enough for a few more attacks, so he rushed forward and prepared to launch another gigantic punch towards his opponent when he saw a fist come rocketing towards his face. Choji could do nothing as the punch came closer and closer until he was sent off his feet due to the attack. Just when he was about to go skidding along the ground, he felt another hand grasp his ankle before being tossed into the wall. Misumi's arm retracted. He took his opportunity to rush forward while the boy groaned as he attempted to get to his feet. As the boy staggered, Misumi sent another punch to the boy's face before using his other arm to wrap around the boy's neck. "Move any more and I'll snap your neck," threatened Misumi while applying pressure to emphasize his point. Choji stayed still for a moment before smirking to himself. "Good luck doing that after this," the boy grunted before slamming his hands together into a seal. "Baika no jutsu." Instantly, the boy's stomach grew to where he looked like a giant ball. This made Misumi raise an eyebrow since he still had to hold the boy. Just when he was about to put pressure on the boy's neck, he felt the boy's head slip out of his hold, and before he knew what was happening, the Choji quickly rolled forward. The bystanders all winced when they heard the sound of crushing bones. When Choji stopped spinning, he turned and saw Misumi's limp form behind him. Hayate walked over and checked his pulse and shook his head. The boy had been crushed, and she knew that nothing could have changed that. "Winner, Akimichi Choji," Hayate said. Naruto and Maizo looked down upon the battle that just had happened. These genin were very good for their age, but not even close to him. Even though he was the same age as them, he still had more power than they could ever dream of having. Once the medics came and picked up the crushed boy, the board began to pick another two combatants. Naruto looked to see the Chuji kid being congratulated by his team. The board then stopped on the next two names. Sabaku no Temari versus Maizo Takaini. "Looks like you have an early fight, Maizo. Go and kick some ass," Naruto said. Maizo only raised an eyebrow before walking down the stairs while Temari did the same. Once both participants got the battle floor, Haku called the fight and both jumped back to get some space. "Wow, that's the best name Maizo could come up with, was Takaini," Naruto thought. Maizo stood confidently while Temari looked rather concerned. She didn't really know what this one could do, and she doubted she should take her lightly. Just as Temari was about to take out her fan and do some damage to Maizo, Maizo just sighed. "I really don't feel like playing with you, so I'm going to end this now," stated the Maizo calmly. Before Kin could even say a word in response, Maizo rushed at Temari with such speed and hit her upwards into the air. Maizo then jumped into the air after her and kicked Temari back down to earth. Temari, slow to get up, looked at Maizo. "Dai Kamaitashi." With her jutsu called, she swung her giant fan, and instantly a small tornado was shot out towards Maizo before she was hurled into the air and received multiple cuts from the fierce winds. Maizo screamed in pain as the winds continued to cut across her flesh and some of her clothing. As the winds began to die down, she felt herself start to descend towards the arena floor. Maizo quickly turned in the air and fell down towards Temari at high speeds. Temari, not being able to react, was hit in the face with a giant punch, sending her into the floor and making a giant crater. Hayate ran over to the now unconscious Temari. He checked her vitals and said, "Winner, Maizo Takaini." Everyone in the audience just watched as Temari was picked up in a stretcher and taken to the infirmary. Maizo walked back up to where Naruto was in the stands and smiled under her mask. Naruto leaned down to her ear. "Nice one, but did you really put your last name as Takaini on the waiver?" Naruto asked. "Yeah, what's wrong with it?" Maizo asked. "Oh, nothing," Naruto said. The board began to pick fighters again until it stopped. "Remind me not to piss her off," mumbled Kiba. Akidu Yoroi versus Hyuga Niji. Yoroi frowned under his veil while Niji stayed emotionless. As the two walked down to the arena, Naruto said good luck to the Hyuga as he passed him by. Niji, not knowing how to take this, just nodded his head. Hyuga Niji versus Akidu Yoroi. Begin. Niji only sighed before calmly entering his Juken stance while Yoroi flashed through a few seals. After he finished his set of seals, his hand began to glow blue as the chakra flowed through it. Once done, the man charged the Hyuga prodigy with his one glowing palm reared back. Niji just waited patently until the man was into striking range before activating his Byakugan and ducking under the man's attack while pressing down on the Tenketsu points in his arms. Yoroi cursed when he felt the chakra leave his hand before jumping back to avoid a juken palm to the abdomen. Once he gained some distance, he quickly pulled out 3 kunai and tossed them at the young Hyuga while his back was turned. The boy didn't move as the deadly weapons came closer towards him, but instead pulled out a kunai of his own and deflected all 3 before tossing it at high speeds towards his opponent. The man quickly rolled to the side to avoid it, only to feel a great amount of pain hit him in the shoulder, courtesy of Niji, who was now moving to attack once more. Before the boy could attack, however, the man lunged his glowing hand forward and went to make grab at his forehead, only to be denied as Niji shifted his head to left, just barely missing the attack but close enough to feel his chakra being drained. So that's what he's trying to do, thought Niji with a smirk. Clever, but you can't expect to catch me with that speed. With this thought in mind, he waited for the man to try once more. Niji's smirk widened somewhat as Yoroi didn't disappoint him, as the man lunged towards him again. Just when Yoroi thought he had him, Niji quickly grasped his wrist before pressing down on 3 tenketsu in the man's other arm. He watched in satisfaction as chakra stopped flowing into Yoroi's hand. Before his opponent could even think of retaliating, Niji dealt a palm to the man's abdomen, causing him to cough up blood. The last thing Yoroi saw before he went into unconscious was the sight of Niji's cold, white, pupilless eyes boring holes into his skull. Winner, Hyuga Niji, announced Hayate before calling over the medics. Tenten versus Baikumino. Tenten couldn't help but grin at finally getting her shot. In her eagerness, she simply leaped over the railing before landing on the arena floor. The boy looked about a few years older than she did. He looked about 5'2" and had seemed to be well fit. He had dark brown hair with matching brown-colored eyes. He was currently wearing a black short-sleeved shirt with his left arm hidden in a long loose sleeve that was stitched to the shirt. The man also wore black shinobi pants with matching ninja sandals. But what really caught Tenten's attention was the wakizashi that was strapped to the man's back. Tenten versus Baikumino, begin. Tenten leapt back as Haku announced the fight's beginning. When she felt she had some good distance, she noticed that the Baiku had yet to move. She raised an eyebrow at this before pulling out 2 shuriken and tossed them at her opponent. The genin remained still until the last moment before unsheathing his wakizashi quicker than most could see and deflecting them before returning the sword to its sheath. Okay, this isn't good, thought Tenten as she pulled out more shuriken and kunai from her pouch. As she went to toss them, she saw him unsheath his sword again before he rushed her while deflecting the projectiles as he went. Once he got into striking distance, he went to slash Tenten in half only for her to duck and attempt to sweep his feet out from under him. He jumped over it and thrust his blade towards her in an attempt to stab her. He was happy to note that he succeeded, only to be disgruntled when she puffed into smoke to reveal a block of concrete. He glanced over his shoulder to see Tenten a few feet away from him on one knee with 2 scrolls on each side of her while performing a few seals. "Sushuryu," shouted the girl before a giant plum of smoke obscured Baika's view. Suddenly, the forms of 2 dragons swirling around each other appeared out of the smoke before dispersing, showing 2 sets of scrolls being unraveled. Throughout the whole sight, Baiku still didn't move. Even when he saw Tenten jump in the middle of the scrolls, he stood still. He just patently waited for the attack to commence, knowing that whatever was going to happen, he was prepared. Up in the air, Tenten grasped the projectiles coming forth from the 2 scrolls before tossing that at her opponent with pinpoint accuracy. However, no matter how many weapons she threw at him, he would deflect them or dodge with relative ease. Soon, all her weapons lay on the arena floor while Baiku stood in the middle, while staring up at her with a bored expression on his face. Tenten gritted her teeth in frustration as she went to retrieve her weapons with the wire attached to them when she realized that the wires had been cut. "He wasn't just deflecting my weapons," thought Tenten frantically. He was cutting the wire off as well. Baiku smirked as he saw her look of panic before leaping towards the girl, who was still relatively high in the air. As he went to unsheath his sword, he saw Tenten's eyes widen slightly as she went to pull out some sort of weapon only to find nothing but another scroll. Baiku went to slash Tenten's arm off, only to sweat drop when he was hit by the butt end of a scroll. Leave it to Tenten to find other uses for a storage scroll, thought the Lee dryly while others proceeded to sweat drop as well. Can't believe that worked, thought Tenten sheepishly as she landed on the arena floor. Tenten watched as Baiku flipped midair before landing on his feet. He glared at her while sheathing his sword. She suppressed a giggle when she saw the red mark left from the butt of the scroll which had hit him directly in the forehead. "You can't win now," he said calmly while rubbing his forehead. "You used every throwing weapon in your arsenal, if that scroll had anything to say about it." "Well, I'm willing to prove you wrong on that one, friend," shot back the girl. With that, she quickly pulled out her last scroll in her pouch and unraveled it while adding chakra to activate the seal that contained her weapon. With a small puff, a katana with a red sheath with a matching red hilt appeared from the scroll. She quickly grasped it before unsheathing her blade, all the while glaring at the boy in front of her. Baiku only raised an eyebrow at her actions before dismissing it as he prepared to attack again. He was pretty surprised when she stuck her sword's blade into the ground before kneeling down and lifting her pants leg up a bit to show a pair of small ankle weights. "A few pounds won't make a difference," said Baiku smugly. Tenten didn't reply instead. She just casually took off the 2 ankle weights until she was holding them in the palm of each hand. She then smiled sweetly before tossing them over her shoulders towards the wall. The moment the weights connected with the wall, it shook as the 2 objects embedded themselves into it, while creating small cracks that stretched out about a few centimeters away from each hole. "A few pounds won't make a difference, huh?" asked Tenten while still smiling sweetly before it was replaced with a scowl. "You shouldn't have underestimated me. Now you're going to regret it." The moment those words left her lips, she grabbed the hilt of her sword and rushed forward at an alarming rate. Baiku, who had not been expecting this, barely managed to unsheath his sword to block the attack only to have powerful kick connect with his ribs. Before Baiku could gather his bearings, he had to duck under another swing from Tenten's blade which cut a few strands of his hair. Getting annoyed, he quickly made a diagonal slash only for it to be blocked by the brunette. The 2 struggled for a bit before Baiku put as much strength into pushing the girl off his sword and thrusting his own blade towards her neck. Tenten quickly jumped back to avoid it while sporting a shallow cut on the side of her neck before turning to block a vertical strike that aimed to cut her in half. After another struggle of power, Tenten finally managed to push the boy's sword off her before making her own vertical strike, which managed to cut the genin across the chest, which penetrated the skin. He groaned in pain as he felt the blood start oozing out of the wound before having to dodge another sword swipe from the weapon's mistress. As Baiku went to make another horizontal strike, Tenten ducked under the attack, and as the blade went over her head, she quickly grabbed his wrist and, with the genin's own momentum, pulled him over her, causing him to be slammed onto his back and his weapon to leave his hand and go skidding across the ground. Tenten smirked as the boy now lay on the ground before grabbing one of her nearby kunai and placing it at the boy's neck. "I win," whispered Tenten before looking at Hayate. "Winner, Tenten." Naruto looked down on the weapon's mistress with high respects. She was a very powerful ninja. You didn't see too many female ninja that were very great. Naruto then looked and saw the board picking again. Yamanaka Ino versus Haruno Sakura. The match went by rather quickly, neither of them winning because they ended up doing a double knockout. Naruto looked down upon ninja like them. They had no power whatsoever and they still tried to call themselves ninja. Naruto looked to the screen to see who would be next, and hopefully they wouldn't cause such a disappointment. Nara Shikamaru versus Huna Hyuti. "Oh crap," groaned Shikamaru as he eyed the brown-haired genin. "Don't worry about it, at least it's not Sasuke you're fighting or someone else," said Choji reassuringly while eating a bag of chips. "Thanks a lot for that, Choji," muttered Shikamaru before adding, "Troublesome." Naruto laughed at this, and then looked towards the brown-haired kid over on the other side. He looked at their Kumo ninja sensei. Hyuti took a glance towards the Kumo trio sensei to see him nod. Wordlessly HTI jumped over the railing before walking into the center of the arena while Shikamaru took his time going down the stairs. Once he was in front of him, the proctor began the match and both fighters jumped back. As he leapt back, Shikamaru began to perform a few seals before stopping on the rat seal. Instantly, his shadow extended as it gave chase towards the silver-haired youth. The said man jumped away from the shadow as it crawled along the ground. As he continued to maneuver around the tricky shadow, Shikamaru pulled out 2 kunai before tossing them at Hyuti, hoping to lure him into his trap. However, Hyuti was no fool. He saw the wire that Shikamaru had added to the 2 kunai and cut them off as soon as he saw them. Though how he attached the wire without him noticing was something he didn't know. Just then he noticed that the boy's shadow was lurking towards him once more and forced him to maneuver around the damn thing once more. Shikamaru only smirked before canceling his jutsu and going into his equipment pouch and pulled out 2 round objects. Hyuti raised an eyebrow before his eyes widened in realization. Shikamaru only smirked before tossing both of the balls into the air towards Hyuti before the 2 exploded to cause a blinding light to engulf the whole room. When the room darkened once more, and everyone could see clearly again, they found that Shikamaru had stayed at the same spot, only his shadow was now connected with Hyuti's. "Kage no jutsu was a success," said Shikamaru with a smirk. Hyuti only raised his eyebrows once more before asking, "Tell me, what does this do to help you beat me?" Shikamaru only turned his head to the left and Hyuti did the same. When he looked, he saw a kunai embedded into the ground about 27 inches beside his foot with an explosive tag attached to it. Shikamaru then turned his head to the right and it showed another kunai with an explosive tag on it about 16 inches from his right foot. "After I threw the flash bombs, I tossed those to each side of you. Now all I have left to do is do a simple seal, and those 2 explosive tags will go off immediately." Hyuti could only sigh as he accepted his loss. He was supposed to be a spy, and that meant that you had to do things you didn't like to do. Sure, he could beat the kid, but in order to keep himself out of suspicion, he had to play along. So, with another sigh, he spoke. "You win. Winner, Nara Shikamaru. That is a true ninja right there. You don't have to be fancy with your ninjutsu or taijutsu. You just have to outsmart your opponent. He will definitely make chunin," Naruto said out loud for everyone to hear. Everyone looked down on Shikamaru coming back up the stairs. They thought the same exact thing. Ni Yujito versus Abumi Zaku. Naruto looked upon the girl from Lighting Country and noticed something about her. He felt the same tug from her as he did with Gaara. She must have a demon sealed inside her, Naruto thought. As Yujito approached the center of the arena floor, she couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at her opponent. He was wrapped up from head to toe in bandages. The moment Hayate announced the fight, Yujito had dashed towards the boy, while the sound Nin raised his only good arm to point his palm in her direction before blasting a small wave of air towards her. The attack collided only to be replaced by a block of concrete and forcing the boy to look around frantically. "Where did she go?" asked Zaku to himself as he looked around in every direction. He was answered by a quick kick to the head which caused him to go skidding across the arena until he stopped when he crashed into the wall. He quickly looked up to see that Yujito was once again nowhere to be seen. He hastily returned to his feet, only to feel Yujito's fist hit him directly in the stomach, causing him to gasp for breath. When he lurched forward, he felt her knee connect with his jaw, causing him to go flying into the wall while bashing the back of his head on it in the process. Yujito watched with disappointment as her opponent slid down the wall in a heap. He wasn't moving, but he was breathing, so she knew he wasn't dead. With a sigh, she turned to face the examiner only to hear the sound of someone chuckling softly. When she turned, she saw the boy was still on the ground with one palm aimed directly at her before she was hit by a strong gust of air pressure which sent her 9 feet across the arena. "Don't turn your back on the enemy, you bitch," spoke Zaku before slowly getting to his feet. He looked over at the woman he had struck before spitting some blood out along with one of his teeth. As the boy turned to walk away, he stopped dead in his tracks when he felt a bone-chilling wave of killing intent. He slowly turned his head to face the woman only to see her dark eyes glaring holes into his eye sockets. She glared at him as he struggled to breathe properly before flashing through 12 seals. Once Yujito finished her seals, jolts of electricity began to surround the blonde girl until her entire body seemed to glow with the electrical charge. "You know," she said calmly as she continued to glare at Zaku, "if you had stayed down you could have avoided this. But now that you pissed me off, I'm just going to end this in the most brutal way I can." Once those words were spoken, she lifted her arm towards the frightened sound Nin before extending her middle and index fingers. As she did this, all the electricity that was once surrounding the woman began to form a tiny orb near the tips of the blonde's 2 fingertips. Once all the electricity was absorbed into the orb, which was now about the size of a baseball, she aimed at the boy before smirking. "Rai-tun, Rai Nami Tai Ho." Hardly anyone saw what happened. All anyone could see and hear was a bright flash and Zaku's screams of pain as he was launched into the wall with a streak of lightning following close behind him. As he hit the wall, Haku quickly rushed over to see that Zaku was twitching out of control while blood seeped from his nose, ears, and mouth along with the whole of burnt flesh was visible on his stomach. If this one lives, then he will not be able to function at all ever again. Winner, Yujito. So that is some of the power of another person like me, Naruto thought. He looked at Yujito walk up the stairs towards them, and as she passed, she turned to Naruto and blew him a kiss. Mizo, seeing this, got very angry, but kept it in. Naruto looked at Yujito, who had just blew him a kiss, and then looked at Mizo. He didn't need to see her face to know she was mad. He then grabbed her shoulder to calm her down. "Mizo, it's fine. Just let it go," Naruto said. Mizo just looked at Naruto and smiled under her mask. She looked at Yujito again, who was now looking at them. She stuck up her middle finger at Yujito. "Fuck you," Mizo said. "Sounds like fun, only if he gets to join," Yujito said, pointing towards Naruto. Mizo blushed under her mask, and so did Naruto. After that, Mizo just turned towards the big screen to see who would be fighting next. Hyuga Hinata versus Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto and Mizo looked at Sasuke, who started to go down towards the ground to begin his battle. Hinata looked at the board and tensed. Too bad Lee was hurt in the forest and couldn't compete. He would love this, Ten said. Naruto overheard this and wondered who Lee was. "Oh no, I have to face Sasuke," Hinata thought. Hinata then began to head down to the floor herself. They both met on the floor and looked at each other. Hayate looked at each of them and asked if they were ready. Both of them shook their heads yes. Hinata activated her Byakugan. "Hinata Hyuga versus Uchiha Sasuke. Begin," Hayate said, jumping back out of the way. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and attacked Hinata. He threw a punch at her head for her to sidestep out of the way. She threw a Juken strike at his stomach, which was dodged by Sasuke doing the Matrix. He shot back up like a rubber band and hit Hinata in the face. Hinata got hit, but acted like nothing happened. She threw another Juken strike at Sasuke, but it was also dodged. Sasuke tried and kick Hinata, but the kick was blocked. Hinata grabbed his leg and tried to Juken strike Sasuke in the leg. Sasuke, seeing this, turned his body, kicking Hinata with his other foot. Hinata let go of Sasuke's leg and jumped back. Hinata wiped the blood from her mouth. "If I get hit with one of those Juken strikes, it'll be done for. I'll have to keep this long distance," Sasuke thought. "I almost had him," Hinata thought. "He knows that he will not be able to beat her in just purely taijutsu," Mizo thought. Sasuke then began to run through hand seals. "Fire release, great fireball technique," Sasuke said. He then made a circle with his hand. He took a big breath and exhaled. Suddenly out of his mouth came a huge fireball. The fireball then headed towards Hinata. Hinata sidestepped it and ran towards Sasuke, who was still blowing out. Hinata threw a Juken strike at Sasuke's chest, but it was blocked by Sasuke hitting the side of her arm, knocking it to the side. Sasuke grabbed Hinata's arm and twisted it so she fell to the ground in pain. He then held it above her back. "Give her, I'll break your arm," Sasuke said. Hinata not gonna give up yet, threw another Juken strike at Sasuke with her free hand. It hit Sasuke in the right arm, knocking it limp. Sasuke in pain let go of Hinata, who jumped to her feet. Sasuke kicked her away when she got up, and they now looked at each other eye to eye. My arm is completely useless. The only for it to unblock is if it is hit like that again. She probably knows that, so I am gonna have to get her to hit it, but it might hurt. Who cares, I have to win this match to kill my brother, Sasuke thought. Hinata ran at Sasuke again, and did a sweeping kick, trying to knock him off his feet. Sasuke jumped over her leg. Hinata spun back up and threw a Juken strike at his other arm. Sasuke quickly turned so the Juken strike hit his limp arm. Suddenly Chakra could get to the arm and he could move it again. He punched Hinata in the face, and then turned her around before she could react. He grabbed both of her arms and pushed them upwards. Now this time no funny business. Give up or I break both of your arms, Sasuke said. He pushed upwards, causing pain in her arms, to show her. I give up, Hinata said. Heiei nodded. Winner? Sasuke Uchiha. That was very smart of Sasuke, he did very well, Naruto thought. Mizo and Naruto watched Hinata and Sasuke come back up to the balcony. Hinata was greeted by her friends, getting sorries. Sasuke, when he came up, was quickly congratulated. Suddenly the board made a sound, saying that it was choosing 2 more genin. The moment everyone's been waiting for. A broom Shino versus Yagura Naruto. Naruto looked at the screen and smirked. He never thought he would ever face in a broom. He knew of their bugs and knew how to deal with them. Shino looked at the board also, and no emotion reached his face. He just received good lucks from his teammates and he walked down to the battleground. Naruto turned to Mizo and smiled under his mask. Good luck, baby, Mizo said. I don't need luck, Naruto sang, cracking his knuckles. He then proceeded downstairs to the battleground. Naruto finally made it down to the middle of the field to see Shino was waiting for him. Heiei looked at each of them to make sure they were ready. A broom Shino versus Yagura Naruto. Begin, Heiei said. He jumped back, watching the match begin. Naruto and Shino both looked at each other. Give up now, Naruto said. Shino's face, still emotionless, raised his hands. Suddenly bugs began to come out of his sleeves. The bugs flew into the air and surrounded Naruto. That's just nasty, Mizo thought. Don't let that weirdo kid scare you, Naruto. I love you, Yujito said. Naruto's sweat dropped, and Mizo turned to the blonde-haired girl. Shut the fuck up before I come over there and rip your pretty little hair out, Mizo said. Bring it, bitch, Yujito said. Back to the fight. Suddenly Shino brought his hands downward, and the bugs flew towards Naruto fast. Naruto poured his chakra outward to create a chakra shield. The bug shit the shield and began to eat at the chakra shield. The bugs ate through the chakra shield quickly and attacked Naruto. Naruto suddenly disappeared. Where did he go? Shino asked himself. Like Naruto answered his question, he appeared behind Shino. He tapped Shino's shoulder. Hey, over here, Naruto said. So fast I didn't even see him move, Kakashi said, Sharingan blazing. Give up, you can't win, Naruto said. Suddenly Shino's bugs attacked Naruto once again. Never, Shino said. Naruto then quickly threw a jab to Shino's spine. Naruto hit it directly. What he didn't expect was for Shino to burst into thousands of chakra bugs. The chakra bugs attached to his arm, and Naruto tried to shake it off. Shit, he got me on that one. I never expected that, Naruto thought. The bugs from earlier also came at him. He quickly released chakra from his arm to push the bugs off of him, and he jumped back. The bugs surrounded him on all sides. Shino suddenly appeared out of some of the insects outside of the dome of bugs. He looked at the dome and actually smiled, like he had just won the match. Inside the dome of bugs. Even though the bugs weren't touching him, because there were so many of them, they still began to drain Naruto's chakra. Naruto, smiling, let more of his chakra out and released a whole bunch of it. Outside of the dome of bugs. Everyone could feel the chakra coming out of the dome of bugs. Some couldn't believe how much chakra Naruto had, and he was still putting out more. Just who is this kid from Waterfall Village? The Hokage asked himself. Impossible, Shino said. Suddenly Naruto released so much chakra that it sent the bugs flying backwards. Once they were done flying backwards, they began to fall straight down. They had been killed because they ate too much chakra and couldn't stop eating. Naruto looked at Shino and smiled. Do you give up now? Naruto asked. Hayate-san, I give up, Shino said. Hayate nodded. Winner? Yagura Naruto. Everyone stood and watched a match won just by releasing a lot of chakra. They were surprised and scared of what Naruto could do. Naruto just smiled and made his way back up to Mizo. When he got up there, everyone was still looking at him. Mizo came up and hugged him. While they hugged, Mizo looked at Yujito through her mask. Yujito, knowing that Mizo was looking at her, moved her mouth to say fuck you. Everyone then turned to see the final match. Will the last two fighters come down here, please? Hayate said. Gaara appeared in a sand pile on the ground and waited for Dosu to come down. Hayate looked at both fighters to make sure they were ready. Sabaku no Gaara versus Yakamiki Dosu. Begin, Hayate said, jumping back. Mother wants your blood, Gaara said. You're fucked up, Dosu said. Suddenly sand came out of Gaara's gourd. It traveled along the ground, and then it shot itself towards Dosu. Dosu, who saw this, jumped back. He landed on the ground a little ways from the sand, but the sand kept coming after him. Dosu then took his right arm out to show everyone that it had a metal tube around it. Dosu quickly tapped his foot on the ground. Vibrating sound drill, Dosu said. Suddenly he put chakra into the metal tube on his arm. It amplified the sound of his tapping the ground by thousands. He then sent the wave of sound at Gaara. Sand jumped in front of the sound, but the sound went through, hitting Gaara head-on. Gaara screamed out in pain as his inner ears were being destroyed. Dosu, taking this time to strike, quickly ran at Gaara. The sand he ran through suddenly grabbed his foot, knocking him to the ground. The sand began to cover his whole body. He tried to get up, but it was useless. The sand was keeping him down. Naruto looked at Gaara. The demon inside of him is healing his ears. He saw with his Rinnegan that a massive amount of demonic chakra was going to Gaara's ears. When Gaara's ears were healed, he looked upon Dosu, who was covered from head to toe in sand, fighting to get out. He held out his hand and smiled. Sand coffin, Gaara said. Suddenly the sand crushed Dosu, ending the match quickly. Gaara smiled, knowing he had gotten Dosu's blood. His sand retreated back into the gourd on his back, and then he put the top on it. Hayate made his way to Dosu. He checked his vitals and noticed he was just destroyed. Winner, Sabaku no Gaara, Hayate said. The Hokage stood up from his position in his chair and ordered ninjas to bring in a machine. The ninjas set the machine in the middle of the arena and left. Now will the winners come down here to the arena? The Hokage said. Everyone that had won their matches came down to the arena. Yujito passed Mizo on the way and stuck her tongue out at her. Yujito then went up to Naruto and kissed him on the neck, and then went up to the front of the line. Naruto held his neck, just being kissed. He turned to Mizo, who was now about to go and fight the girl. Mizo, just let her go. She's trying to play with you. But she kissed you, Mizo said. Yeah, on the neck. Let's just listen to the Hokage, okay? Naruto said. Mizo, still glaring at Yujito, listened to the Hokage. Now this machine has many different balls with numbers on them. It is kind of like bingo. You will activate the machine, and it will pick a number for you. Whatever number you get will tell us who you will fight in the finals. Now will the first person please step up? The Hokage said. Yujito stepped up to the machine and activated it. Took a few seconds, but a ball came out of a slot, and she went and picked it up. She showed it to everyone. It was a 6. Everyone did this and then looked to the Hokage for who was going to fight each other. We have put everything in, and if you look to the screen, you will see who you will be fighting in the final exam. the Hokage said. Suddenly the screen popped up with the results for the matches. Yugura Naruto versus Sabuka no Gaara. Takaini Maizo versus Ni Yujito. Ten versus Uchiha Sasuke. Akimiki Chuji versus Hyuga Negi. Shikamaru quickly noticed he wasn't on the screen. Hayate-san, why am I not on the screen? He asked. Since we have an odd number, you will face whoever wins the fight between Yugura Naruto and Sabaku no Gaara, Hayate said. Shikamaru nodded his head. Yujito and Maizo glared at each other. You're going down, bitch, Yujito said. Maizo just flicked her off and hanged on Naruto's arm to show her he was hers. Naruto's sweat dropped at this and turned towards Gaara. He's the one Orochimaru said would help him win this invasion in the file. I must kill him in the finals. I will deal with it if his demon comes out, Naruto thought. Now since you know who you will be facing in the finals, I bid you good luck. The finals will be held a month from now in the stadium in Konoha. Practice and learn new things, so you can be well prepared for the tournament. Now Hayate will escort all of you back to the main village, the Hokage said. Hayate nodded his head. He began to walk towards some doors. Will everyone follow me, please? Every genin who was still in the room began to follow Hayate. Hayate led them through long passageway and such. Took them about an hour before Hayate stopped in front of two double doors. He opened them to reveal that they were in the academy. Everyone who won went out into the streets to go find their family to tell them how good they did. The ones who didn't win still went to go tell their parents. Maizo and Naruto walked hand in hand down the main path in Konoha. Suddenly 6 figures appeared in front of them. Naruto was once reunited with his paths. Did they find anything? Maizo asked. No, wherever Orochimaru is hiding he is doing pretty well at it, Naruto said. Maizo nodded and they went to the hotel that the paths had been staying at. They went up to the paths' room and sat on the couch just loving each other's company. They began to make out, but before that could happen a summoned bird appeared in front of them. Naruto and Maizo turned towards the bird and had pouting faces on because they hadn't gotten to the good part yet. Are you Naruto Uzumaki? The bird asked. Naruto and Maizo perked up hearing Naruto's real name. I have come to bring you this, the bird said, taking a scroll of its back and laying it down on the table. Naruto picked it up and began to read the contents of the scroll. Dear Naruto, I just want to inform you that I have made my dream. I have become the Mizukage. If you would please come to Kirigakure to be here for my ceremony to be inducted in, I would greatly love it. Your friend, Mei Terumi. Naruto reread the scroll and smiled. His friend that he had met on his travels had finally gotten her dream. Maizo read the scroll and looked at Naruto. Who is Mei? She asked, hoping it wasn't some girl before her. I met her during my travels before you. We were like best friends. I had to leave and she said she would make the title of Mizukage someday and I promised I would go see her inducted in, Naruto said. Naruto looked at more of the scroll and saw when the induction was and smiled. I should be able to go to her induction and then come straight back here. I am going to leave my animal path with you just in case, okay? Naruto said. I can't come with you? Maizo asked. It wouldn't be wise, one of us needs to stay here to keep an eye on things. I'll definitely be back before the finals of the Chunin exam, Naruto said. You mean to tell me it takes a whole month for her to get inducted? Maizo asked. Naruto got up and began to gather his things to make the trip. Maizo got up and grabbed him. Do you have to leave now? She asked. Yes, if I want to make it there in 2 days. I'll miss you, Naruto said, kissing Maizo passionately. I'll miss you too, baby. I guess I'll see you when you get back, Maizo said. Naruto smiled at her, then he disappeared. Men and their flashy exits. I guess I'm stuck with you, Maizo thought, looking at the animal path that just appeared in the room. Hey, you can make out with my path, the path said. Hell no, only you, Maizo said. The path then laughed. Naruto was now on his way with the pains out of the village, heading towards the village of Kirigakure. He had been there many times to visit Mei, but never for something as big as this. He remembered all the things they did together while he was there and all the fun they had. Do I have feelings for Mei? Naruto thought. Elsewhere one day later, a man with orange hair and Rinnegan eyes stood in front of three men. He looked at them with power. Sasori, Deidara, hide and go and bring me back the QB container. I am sending you three because he is very powerful, about as powerful as me. He is heading towards Kirigakure, from what my intel tells me. The man said. Yes, Leader Sama. All three of them say. Good, now go. Naruto chapter start. Naruto had been traveling for a day and now found himself in the land of water. He knew he had one more day left until he reached Kirigakure, so he settled down to rest for the night. Like always, his paths set up everything as he waited for them to get done. Once they were done, he went to sleep, but not before he made many Kagebushins, so he would be alerted if an enemy came into their camp. Naruto had a peaceful sleep and made his way towards Kirigakure in the morning at sunrise. He and his paths traveled many miles before they finally decided to rest before they made their final trek to Kirigakure. They stopped in a small town so Naruto could get something to eat. They looked around until they found a diner. Naruto walked into the diner and found a place to sit. He ordered his food and began to eat. He finished his meal and then gave the waiter the money to pay for the food. He and his paths then walked out of the diner. Naruto and his paths then began to walk down the street towards the gate of the small town. He and his paths had on their straw hats so no one could see their mask. They walked and almost before Naruto stopped. He looked up past his straw hat to see three figures in front of him. They were all wearing the same cloak with red clouds on them. Akatsuki, what are they doing here? Naruto thought. Mizo had told Naruto a lot about Akatsuki and its members. She knew they would probably meet them sooner or later, so she gave detailed information about all the members. Naruto looked at the first one, who had long blonde hair. Naruto quickly identified him as Deidara. Mizo had told him about all how Deidara used exploding clay to fight people. He knew all of Deidara's tricks, because Mizo made sure to study up on all of the members. Naruto then looked at the second one. This one was hunched over and looked like he was made out of wood. The most notable feature was a wooden tail with a huge blade on it waving around behind him. Naruto also identified him quickly. Sasori, the greatest puppet master ever to walk the earth, and knew about his mastery over his puppets. He knew about the third Kazekage puppet that he had. Naruto looked at the last one there. This one had white hair which was slicked back with some gel. This man's hands were around a huge scythe. Naruto also knew of this one, Haiden, a Jashin follower. Being an immortal, he could not die. He used blood of the opponent to kill them. Naruto knew of his different techniques and was amazed about how someone could be immortal. What is Akatsuki doing here? Naruto asked. We have come to get the QB container. We have come to get you. Please come with us. I am not in the mood to fight, Sasori said. Naruto smirked under his mask. He reached and grabbed his mask, and his paths did the same thing. They took off their mask and threw them on the ground. Naruto and his paths then took off their straw hats and looked at the Akatsuki members, so they could see their Rinnegan eyes. Naruto's Azura path suddenly ripped off his cloak, so he was left in just his pants. I guess that means you want to fight, Sasori said. Naruto looked around to see the villagers were now gone. It seemed like when they saw them about to battle, they left the village. Naruto and his paths cracked their knuckles and then their necks. I'll need to go all out from the beginning if I want to defeat them, Naruto thought. Can we just kill him already, so we can go? Deidara asked. Shut the fuck up, Deidara, and pay attention. We have to work together. He is stronger than each of us, but if we work together then we have a shot, Haiden said. I didn't know you were one for working together, Haiden, Sasori said. Haiden just smiled and looked at Naruto. Jashin-sama is going to like your blood, Haiden said. Naruto thought this was really creepy but brushed it off and waited for them to make the first move. Sasori in his puppet encasing brought out a scroll. The scroll opened to reveal what Naruto knew was the third Kazekage. So she was telling the truth. He did make a human puppet. Naruto thought. No matter how many times you bring him out, I am still freaked out, Deidara said. Sasori just stood there looking at Naruto. The Kazekage puppet opened its mouth and iron sand came out. The iron sand floated into the air around everyone. Haiden, not usually being on a team with Sasori and Deidara, looked at the iron sand in amazement. Attack him when you see an opening, Sasori said. Suddenly the iron sand formed into a huge block. The block then flew at Naruto. Naruto held out his hand. Shinra Tensei. Suddenly the iron sand was forced backwards. The block of iron sand headed towards Haiden. Haiden quickly dodged it. The block of iron sand quickly divided back into the sand once more. Haiden charged Naruto quickly and swung his scythe. The Azura path came out of nowhere and grabbed the scythe. The path swung the scythe around him. Haiden, still gripping the scythe, was thrown around with the scythe. The path let go of the scythe, sending it and Haiden flying into a building, making it collapse on him. Naruto turned just in time to see another block of iron sand coming at him. Naruto's Naraka path appeared in front of him, Samahata drawn. He swung Samahata towards the iron sand cube. Samahita drained the iron sand of its chakra, making the sand suddenly drop to the ground. It seems you met our friend Kisame. Well, it also seems you have visited Konoha and got their old Hokages. Who is the last one though? Sasori said, looking at Naruto's Deva path. Skip the small talk, Deidara said. He stuck his hand in his pouch full of clay. The mouth on his hand opening up to take in some of the clay. Deidara took his hand out of the pouch and began to mold the clay. The clay suddenly came out of the mouth on his hand in the shape of a bird. Deidara threw the bird clay near him, and it turned into a huge clay bird. Deidara jumped on the clay bird and rode it into the sky. Looks like Deidara is going to try to get me from the air, while Haiden and Sasori are going to try and get me from the ground. Smart, I would have done the same thing, Naruto thought. Naruto then looked to see Haiden coming out of the building that had fallen on him. You bitch, that hurt, Haiden said. Naruto was looking at Haiden, not paying any attention to Deidara up in the sky anymore. Deidara just got done molding a clay bomb in his hand, which he threw down at Naruto. Sasori, trying to trap Naruto, had the iron sand come back up and attack Naruto once more. Naruto's Predapath looked to the sky to see Deidara's clay bomb coming towards them, and Naruto's human path saw the iron sand cube coming their way. Naruto and his Deva path got back to back. Since the attacks were coming from opposites ways off each, they could easily see both attacks. The bomb and the iron sand cube was about to hit both of them until both of them ducked. The clay bomb passed under the iron sand cube and headed for Sasori, while the iron sand cube headed nowhere. Suddenly Naruto and his Deva path both came up from their dodges and said, Shinra Tensei. The clay bomb was thrown at Sasori at high speeds by an invisible force and hit him, blowing up, making a big explosion. The iron sand cube, no longer under the control of Sasori, was sent flying towards Deidara up in the sky at fast speeds. Deidara, since in the air, could easily dodge it. Everyone looked to see what had happened to Sasori, since the clay bomb made quite an impact. The smoke from around Sasori to show a young man with red hair, standing in the place of where the wooden armor used to be. With the Kazekage puppet still at his side, Sasori looked up at Naruto and his paths. This is going to be interesting, Sasori said. Looks like I broke his armor puppet, Naruto thought. Naruto looked at Haiden and Deidara. Suddenly his paths split up. His Predapath and Deva path went to go and attack Deidara. His human and Azura path went to deal with Haiden, and Naruto and his Naraka path went to go and deal with Sasori. With Naruto and his Naraka path. Naruto and his path both ran at Sasori. Sasori flicked his wrist, sending his Kazekage puppet at them. A knife popped out of the Kazekage's puppet hand. The Kazekage tried to stab Naruto with its poison blade. Naruto backstepped and grabbed the puppet's hand. Suddenly the Naraka path got out its huge sword and swung it at the puppet. Hitting the puppet totally destroyed it, sending pieces everywhere. Sasori looked at Naruto and his path with an emotionless face. He grabbed a scroll and threw it in the air. Suddenly 100 chakra strings come out of Sasori's chest. While in the air the scroll opened, there was a huge poof of smoke, which surrounded Sasori. Red's secret technique, performance of 100 puppets, Sasori said. When the smoke disappeared, there around Sasori was 100 puppets. You will now see my true power, Sasori said. I can't be cut by any of his weapons. If I am, I'll die, because I don't have the antidote, Naruto thought. Suddenly Sasori sent the puppets towards Naruto and his path. With the Preta path and Deva path. The paths looked up at Deidara on his massive clay bird. Deidara looked down on the paths and laughed. There was no way they were going to beat him on the ground, right? He formed some clay in his hand and began to throw many clay bombs down on them. The paths ducked and weaved to dodge the clay bombs. The Deva path saw one clay bomb coming and sent it back with a Shinra Tensei. The bomb blew up right near Deidara, not being able to dodge it, knocking him off balance on his bird. The Preta path suddenly picked up the Deva path and threw him towards the huge clay bird, Deidara not seeing this because he was worried about his balance. The Deva path caught on to the bottom of the bird and began to dig his hands into the clay to climb to the top. When Deidara got his bearings, he looked back down on the Preta path. He noticed that there was only one path there and not two. He quickly looked around to see where the other one was. Crap, where is the other one at? Deidara thought. The Deva path, now making it to the top, looked at Deidara. Deidara, sensing his chakra, turned to the path. With the Asura path and human path. The Asura and human path were now in a heated battle with Haiden. Haiden threw a punch towards the human path while he swung his scythe at the Asura path. They both ducked and stabbed Haiden in the gut with kunai. Haiden fell down to the ground, holding his gut. The paths began to leave him, thinking he was going to die, until they heard laughing. Haiden got up from being stabbed and took the two kunai out of his gut. The paths looked at him in confusion until they remembered he was immortal. Haiden threw the kunai that he took out of his gut at them. Still being off guard, the human path was hit in the shoulder while the Asura path let it hit him. When the kunai hit the Asura path, it just bounced off, making a sound like it is metal. What the fuck? Haiden said. The human path took out the kunai in his shoulder and dropped it on the ground. How am I supposed to kill him? The path thought. He looked at Haiden, who got ready to attack again with his scythe. Haiden suddenly moved faster than the paths could see. He appeared beside the human path and made a swipe with his scythe. The human path ducked and dodged the attack. The Asura path took this time to throw a punch at Haiden. With Naruto and his Naraka path. Naruto quickly dodged the puppets that came his way, destroying the ones that had passed him, by using his Shinra Tensei. He was breathing hard and losing energy fast. His Naraka path swung its giant sword, hitting two of the puppets at once, ripping them apart. Naruto looked around and saw he was surrounded by puppets. Die, Sasori said. The puppets then all came at Naruto at once. I have to try and focus the Shinra Tensei all around me, Naruto thought. He closed his eyes and began to concentrate. The puppets were coming fast and he had to do something quickly before he was killed. He suddenly shot both of his arms outwards. Shinra Tensei, Naruto said. Suddenly the invisible force that came with the Shinra Tensei hit every single puppet that was around him. It made them fly backwards and made parts come loose. The puppets were destroyed when they hit the ground because of the impact. The Naraka path was doing fine on his own, smashing the puppets with his huge sword. He then saw 10 puppets coming at him from afar, moving at incredible speeds. He ran through hand seals quickly. Earth release, earth pillar death, the path said. Suddenly earth spikes shot out of the ground below the puppets and impaled them all so they could move. Naruto and his path grouped back up together to look at Sasori and his puppets. They had taken care of at least 25 of them, but there were a whole lot more where that came from. With the Deva path and Preta path. Seeing that he was not needed, the Preta path went to go help out Naruto and the Naraka path. You think you can defeat me on my own creation? Think again, Deidara said. The clay bird then flipped upside down and was still flying. The Deva path quickly stuck to the bird using chakra in its feet. Deidara, angered that the path wasn't thrown off, began to throw his clay bombs at the path. The path ran at Deidara, ducking the little explosions. He made it to Deidara and ducked under punch to the face. The path followed it up with a shot to the gut, which was dodged by Deidara. Deidara flipped the bird back over to right side up and hit the path with his knee, send the path back. The path did a back flip and midair and was heading down to earth, since he was about to fall off the bird. With the Azura path and the human path. Haydn ducked under the thrown punch at his head and hit the human path with the staff end of his scythe, send the path into a house. Forgetting about the one who threw the punch he just dodged, Haydn was hit by another punch to the face, sending him flying in the air. The Azura path put his hand down and a blade came out of the palm in his hand. He then aimed it at Haydn, who was in the air, and fired his hand at him. The bladed hand flew through the air at high speeds, and was quickly gaining on Haydn. Haydn, seeing the bladed hand come towards him, turned in the air and dodged it. Haydn landed on the ground on his feet and looked at the Azura path. The human path just got up from the hit into the house and went over to the other one. Haydn gripped his scythe harder. How am I supposed to beat these two? Haydn thought. He looked at both of the paths and smiled. The Azura path held out his arm without the hand and waited. The hand with the blade sticking out of it suddenly appeared out of nowhere, flying through the air. It flew until it reached the Azura path, where it was reattached to his arm again. Haydn made the first move and disappeared again. The paths looked around to see where he had gone to, but could not see him. Haydn appeared behind the Azura path and brought his scythe down onto the path's shoulder. It hit hard, shattering the path's shoulder, and the scythe stayed in there. The human path tried to punch Haydn, but Haydn ducked out of the way, ripping his scythe out of the path's shoulder, making the wound worse. Black liquid oozed out of the wound, and you could see sparks going everywhere. He had messed up the mechanics in the path's shoulder. The human path appeared behind Haydn and kicked him into a post, which was on the sidewalk of the street they were on. The Azura path turned around. With Naruto and the Naraka path. Naruto and his path looked upon the things in front of him. There were many puppets, and it would take a lot of strength to destroy them all and control his paths. Crap, my Azura path can no longer use his right arm, Naruto thought. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the Preta path appeared. Sasori looked at the newcomer and frowned. Great, another one. I was having a big problem. Now with another one, I'll be defeated for sure, Sasori thought. He flicked his wrist and all 75 puppets were thrown at Naruto and his two paths. Naruto and his two paths, instead of waiting, ran towards the incoming puppets. The Naraka path swung his sword, easily destroying a couple that were near him. Naruto jumped in the air and landed on the back of one of the puppets' heads. He fell down towards the ground fast, landing on the puppet's head, crushing it. The Preta path took out its three-pronged kunai and cut the heads off of many of the puppets. With the Deva path. The Deva path, now flying through the air, looked down and saw the ground, which was coming towards him fast. He stuck his hand out and quickly grabbed the bird, stopping his fall. He slowly climbed up back onto the bird and looked at Deidara. Crap, he didn't fall off, Deidara thought. Deidara stuck his hand in his pouch to get more clay. He brought his hand out and began to make more. The path, seeing this, ran at Deidara, hoping he would get to the blonde man before he could start throwing bombs at him again. Deidara, seeing the path coming quickly, formed 5 clay bombs in his hand and began to throw them at the path. The path, seeing this, stuck out his hand and said, Shinra Tensei. Suddenly the bombs changed direction and headed for Deidara. Oh shit, Deidara said. Suddenly the bombs went off and made a huge explosion. With the human and Azura path. The paths stood together, looking at Haydn slowly get up. Haydn was now on his hands and knees, and was about to get up before the Azura path appeared beside him and kicked him in the sky. The Azura path appeared above Haiden in the air and punched him towards where Naruto's battle was going on. Haiden landed near Sasori, who was having a hard time dealing with Naruto and his two paths. The human path and Azura path appeared behind Naruto and began to fight puppets themselves. With Naruto and his four paths. Haiden, get up and help me with these fools, Sasori said. Haiden slowly got up as Naruto and his paths were battling the puppets. Sasori's puppets were quickly dying out as Naruto and his paths were destroying them. Haiden, seeing this, took out his three-bladed scythe and began to get back into the battle. With the Deva path. The Deva path was blown off the clay bird by the explosion and was heading towards the ground. He turned his head to see Deidara falling towards the ground also. Deidara was alive and moving. Crap, if I'm going down then he is going with me, Deidara said, making clay bombs in his hand as he descends. He then begins to throw the bombs at the path, who cannot dodge them. The path is hit by all of them, and his body is torn. The path puts out his hand and says, Bansho Tenin. Suddenly Deidara came flying towards the falling path. Deidara tried to not go towards him, but ended up turning his back towards the path. The path grabbed Deidara from behind and held him. Deidara tried to get out of the path's grip but could not. Suddenly the ground got closer. Deidara looked down and saw the ground a few feet away. The path suddenly disappeared. The path reappeared below Deidara. Deidara, not being able to stop his descent, hit the ground, splattering his blood everywhere. His body parts littered the ground, and blood splurted all over the Deva path's cloak. The Deva path was drenched in Deidara's blood. He looked at the dead blonde, and then headed towards the bigger battle. With Naruto and his other paths. Naruto and his four paths were doing very well in destroying the paths until Haiden got into the battle. Haiden was now occupying two of his four paths, putting up a good fight. Naruto and his human path were now fighting the puppets while the Azura and Naraka path were fighting Haiden. Naruto ducked and dodged through the puppets, killing them one by one. Not many left, it shouldn't take much longer now, Naruto thought. His human path was also killing the puppets one by one. Suddenly a puppet appeared in front of Naruto, throwing him off guard. Naruto quickly stuck his hand out to do another Shinra Tensei, but was caught off guard when the puppet went to stab Naruto with a hidden blade in his hand, like the Azura paths. The puppet lunged forward with the hand with the blade. Blood gushed everywhere from where the poisoned blade had hit. Humph, Naruto said. Blood was all over the puppet who had the bladed hand. Naruto looked and saw the bloody blade. He had just got the wind, knocked the wind out of himself, sending him flying away. He now looked at the puppet that had tried to stab his Deva path. At the last moment Naruto had his Deva path push him away, and then take the blow. Except the Deva path did not take the blow. The Deva path moved the right way, sending Deidara's blood all over his body onto the puppet and the puppet's blade. The Deva path looked at the puppets and quickly pushed his palm into the puppet, Shinra Tensei. The puppet was sent flying backwards into more puppets, destroying them. Naruto got hit, his breathing back down, and looked at Sasori's puppets. He then saw Haiden taking on his two paths, with the Azura and Naraka path. Haiden looked at the two paths in front of him and smiled. He knew that he couldn't die and would soon get a lucky shot at one of them, killing them. Haiden gripped his scythe and went charging at the two paths. When he got close enough, the Azura path threw a punch at Haiden, for Haiden to disappear. Haiden reappeared behind the Naraka path, kneeing him in the spine. The Naraka path fell down, not being able to move, because Haiden had broken his spine with that hit. The Naraka path hit the ground hard, and before the Azura path could do anything, Haiden brought his scythe down on the path's head, sending blood everywhere. The Azura path tried to save the other path, but hit Haiden into a building after he had done the damage. Azura appeared near the building Haiden had hit and destroyed. He looked in the rubble to see if he could see the Jashin follower. With Naruto, his three paths. Naruto ran at the different puppets and destroyed them one by one. His paths were almost done in destroying all of the puppets, and were making their way towards Sasori. Naruto, leaving the rest of the puppets to his paths, went after Sasori. Sasori, seeing this, tried to send some puppets at Naruto, but they were destroyed by Naruto's path before they got to him. Naruto took out a sharp-pointed chakra pole and disappeared. Sasori, not seeing where he was at, was getting scared. Naruto appeared behind Sasori. Sasori, sensing him, suddenly unlocked a secret blade in his back, which shot at Naruto. Naruto, not being able to hit Sasori before Sasori unlocked the hidden blade, said, "Shinra Tensei." Sasori was then sent flying forward. Naruto waited for Sasori to be a ways off in the air. He then said, "Bansho Tenin." Sasori then began to come back towards Naruto. Naruto threw his chakra pole at Sasori. Sasori came back fast, and the chakra pole met him in the middle. The chakra pole went straight through his fake heart that he created and through the other side and kept flying in the air until it hit a pole in the street. Sasori kept coming back towards Naruto. Naruto grabbed his neck from behind and held him out in front of him. Naruto then squeezed Sasori's neck, and his head popped off and flew into the air. Naruto threw Sasori's body to the side and looked at Sasori's puppets, who were now on the ground also. 2 down, 1 more to go, Naruto thought. All the paths that were facing the puppets then went over to help the 2 paths with Haiden. They got over there to see the Azura path looking at a house, which was in ruins waiting. Haiden then slowly came out of the rubble, rubbing his head. He looked at all the paths, and he turned to where Sasori was. "Fuck!" Haiden turned back towards the paths and Naruto. "You may have killed them, but you can't kill me," he said. He gripped his scythe and ran at Naruto. Naruto got ready, and Haiden disappeared. He appeared behind Naruto and slashed his scythe down to kill Naruto. Suddenly he was grabbed by 2 of Naruto's paths and forced to his knees. Naruto turned around and smiled at him. "You say you cannot die, but you will. Trust me," Naruto said. The human path walked over to Haiden, being held down by the 2 paths, and put his hand on Haiden's head. He began to read his mind. He found out where the Akatsuki base is and what the Akatsuki are after. "You see, I can rip out people's souls," the human path said. He then brought his hand off of Haiden's head and with it Haiden's soul. There in Haiden's hand was a purple ghostly figure, which the human path quickly destroyed. Having his soul taken away, Haiden fell to the ground dead. Naruto sent a path to pick up the Naraka path and bring them over to him. Naruto, being exhausted from the battle, from losing so much chakra, fell down. Controlling the bodies and then fighting himself took a toll on his body. He fell down to his knees, breathing hard. "I'm sorry, Mei-chan, but I can't see you become Mizukage," Naruto said. He then had the animal path summon him and his paths back to Konoha. When Naruto arrived back in the hotel room, he fell down knocked out. The paths fell down also knocked out because they weren't being controlled anymore. Mizo walked through the door with food in her hand. "You know, talking to you through your path is kind of creepy," Mizo said. She then noticed Naruto's body on the floor and gasped. She quickly ran over to him and checked his vitals. He was alive, he just was low on chakra. "What did you do? You've only been gone for 2 days?" Mizo said, picking him up and laying him on the bed. She knew all he needed was rest before he could get back to his normal self. She looked at the paths on the ground and just let them stay there. For days later, Naruto slowly opened his eyes to see the hotel room ceiling. He found himself on a bed. He looked around to see if Mizo was anywhere. He did not see her anywhere, and he began to get up. He turned his body so that his feet were hanging off the bed, and he was just sitting on the edge of the bed. He rubbed his head, which was still in a tizzy, from chakra exhaustion. He looked around again to see a bathroom. He went to the bathroom to get a shower. When he got out of the shower, he realized he did not have any more clothes. He walked out of the bathroom with his towel around his waist to see a clean cloak, shirt, boxers, and pants on the bed. Naruto smiled and got dressed with his new clothes. Naruto walked out of the room to see Mizo making some breakfast. He walked up behind her and grabbed her hips. Mizo, being surprised, jumped a little bit. She turned around to see Naruto and smiled. "Looks who's up. What happened to you?" she asked. He kissed her passionately and then walked towards the table. I'll tell you while we eat, Naruto said. Mizo nodded and finished making breakfast. She put his breakfast on a plate and laid it down on the table. She herself just sat down without breakfast. Aren't you going to eat? Naruto asked. I already eat breakfast. Now tell me what happened, Mizo said. Naruto then proceeded to tell her everything that had happened. Mizo frowned hearing that Akatsuki was finally coming after the Biju after 2 years. That would mean that Naruto was in danger. Knowing that he could take care of himself against almost any ninja, she was still afraid for him. What's wrong, Mizo? Naruto asked. It's just that now they are coming after you. I'm scared, Mizo said. Naruto smiled and cupped her cheeks. I am stronger than almost any ninja in the world. Don't worry, Naruto said, kissing Mizo again. Now how long have I been out? Naruto asked. You have been out for 4 days, Mei said. Well, I am not going to try to go to Kirigakure. They would probably just attack me again, Naruto said. Mizo smiled hearing that he would not be going to Kirigakure. Elsewhere. I am very disappointed in you three, but now it is no problem. He defeated you three together, meaning he is stronger than I thought. Now I have added you to my collection, the orange-haired man said with the Rinnegan eyes. He looked upon 3 Akatsuki members. Deidara, Sasori, and Haiden all had the Rinnegan eyes. Back with Naruto. Are you sure about this? Naruto asked. I'm very sure, Mizo said.